For over 1,000 years, Zen masters have shared a series of 10 ancient pictures. These images hold the secret to finding peace, not through struggle or effort, but through a gentle journey back to what was never lost. Before we begin, feel free to share what time it is and where you are listening from. Tonight, we will walk through 10 stages together. And to guide us, we will follow a young man named Ren. His story is ancient and timeless. He carries the same questions you carry. He seeks the same peace you seek. And what he discovers along the way may quietly illuminate your own path. You do not need to remember every detail or understand everything perfectly. These teachings work best when received with an open heart and a relaxed mind. Simply let the stories unfold, one after another, like footprints leading you home. The Zen masters knew that what we search for is already here. The peace we long for is not hiding in some distant place. It is present now, in this breath, in this moment, waiting to be recognized. Relax. Take a slow, deep breath, and let's begin this gentle journey together. The first stage of peace begins not with wisdom, but with confusion. It begins with the feeling that something is missing, even when we cannot say what. In Zen Buddhism, this stage is called the search. It is pictured as a person wandering through tall grass, looking tired and lost. They are searching for an ox, which represents their true nature, their deepest peace. But the ox is nowhere to be found. The person does not even know what they are looking for. They only know that the life they have been living is not enough. This is where the spiritual path begins for most of us. Not with a grand revelation, but with a quiet ache. A sense that we are going through the motions without knowing why. A hunger we cannot name. The Buddha called this dukkha, a word often translated as suffering, but which also means dissatisfaction or incompleteness. It is the first of his 4 noble truths, and it points to something we all experience. Life, as we usually live it, does not quite satisfy us. We reach for happiness and it fades. We get what we want and soon want something else. We build our lives around things that change and pass away. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you looked forward to something, certain it would make you happy, only to find the happiness did not last? A new job, a new relationship, a new home, a vacation, an achievement. The excitement comes, peaks, and fades. Soon we are looking for the next thing, and the next, always chasing a satisfaction that stays just out of reach. We tell ourselves that the next thing will be different. This time, we will be happy. This time, it will last. But it never does. The pattern repeats, year after year, and we begin to wonder if something is wrong with us. Why can we not just be content? Why is there always this ache, this wanting, this feeling that something is missing? The Buddha himself began this way. Before he became the Buddha, he was a young prince named Siddhartha, living in a palace, surrounded by every comfort. His father tried to shield him from all suffering, keeping him inside walls where everything was beautiful and pleasant. But one day, Siddhartha ventured outside the palace, and there he saw things he had never seen before. A sick person, bent over in pain. An old person, frail and trembling. a dead body being carried to the cremation ground. He realized that no matter how comfortable his life was, he too would grow sick, grow old, and die. Everything he loved would pass away. This was Siddhartha's great doubt. His comfortable world fell apart. The pleasures of the palace suddenly seemed hollow. He could not go back to the way things were. So he left. He gave up his wealth, his status, his family. He walked out into the unknown, searching for something that would not fade, something that would answer the question of suffering. He did not know what he was looking for. He only knew he had to look. This is how every spiritual journey begins. With the courage to admit we are lost. With the willingness to leave behind what is familiar and step into the unknown. It is not easy. Everything in us wants to stay safe, to keep doing what we have always done. But something deeper calls us forward, a voice we cannot ignore. We do not need to be princes or monks to feel this call. The great doubt can come to anyone. It can come in the middle of a successful career, in a happy relationship, in a life that looks perfect from the outside. It does not care about our circumstances. It cares only about the truth. And the truth is that something in us longs for more than what we have found. Something in us knows there is a deeper peace, a wider freedom, a truer way of being. We may not know how to find it. We may not even believe it exists. But the longing is there, quiet and persistent, waiting for us to listen. It has always been there. Perhaps it is the most honest part of us. The first stage of awakening is simply this: we begin to listen. Let us turn now to a young man named Ren, whose story will guide us through the stages of this journey. Ren was 23 years old and lived in a small village nestled at the edge of a green valley. His family had farmed the same land for generations. Rice paddies in the wet season, when the fields became mirrors reflecting the sky. Vegetables in the dry months, rows of green and purple and gold stretching toward the tree line. The work was hard but steady, and Ren had learned it from his father, who had learned it from his own father before him. The land held their history. The soil knew their hands. By all appearances, Ren had a good life. He had a mother who cared for him deeply, neighbors who waved when he passed, a small house with a roof that kept out the rain. He woke before dawn each morning, spent his days in the fields, and returned home as the sun set behind the mountains. He ate simple meals, slept on a thin mat, and rose again to do it all over. This was the rhythm of his life, and for many years, Ren did not question it. But sometimes, in the quiet moments between tasks, he felt a strange unease. When he paused to wipe the sweat from his forehead, or sat alone after dinner while his mother cleaned the dishes, a feeling would creep over him, a kind of emptiness, a restlessness he could not explain. He would look up at the mountains that ringed the valley, their peaks distant and blue against the sky, and feel something tugging at him, like a rope tied to his ribs, pulling him towards something he could not see. He did not know what was on the other side of those mountains. He was not even sure he wanted to know. But the feeling was there, day after day, quiet but insistent, and it would not leave him alone. Ren never spoke of this to anyone. What would he say? He had everything a person could need: food, shelter, family, work. His life was simple and good. To complain seemed ungrateful. To want more seemed foolish, even selfish. So he pushed the feeling down and kept working. He told himself the restlessness would pass. He told himself he was being childish. But late at night, when sleep would not come, the questions returned. Is this all there is? Is this all I will ever be? In the autumn of his 23rd year, Ren's father fell ill. It started small, just a cough that lingered longer than it should. His father waved it away, said it was nothing, kept working in the fields until his legs would not carry him. But the cough grew deeper, rattling in his chest, and soon he could not leave his bed. Ren took over the farm completely. He woke even earlier, worked even later, trying to keep everything running. His mother prepared soups and herbal remedies, sitting by her husband's side through the long nights. A healer from the next village came with medicines and prayers. The neighbors brought food and good wishes. But nothing helped. The nights grew cold. The leaves turned gold and red, then fell from the trees and scattered in the wind. And one morning, as the first frost settled over the valley like a white blanket, Ren's father closed his eyes and did not open them again. The funeral was small and quiet. Neighbors came with food and soft words. Incense burned beside the body, its smoke rising in thin threads toward the grey sky. Ren stood by the grave and watched them lower his father into the earth. He felt hollow, as if someone had reached inside him and taken something vital. In the days that followed, Ren moved through the world like a ghost. He fed the animals. He repaired a broken fence. He harvested the last of the autumn vegetables and stored them for winter. He sat with his mother in the evenings as she wept, holding her hand but saying nothing, because there was nothing to say. But inside, something had shifted. Something had cracked open. He began to ask questions he had never asked before. What was the point of all this work? His father had labored every day of his life, waking before dawn, falling into bed exhausted each night, and now he was gone. The fields would still need tending. The seasons would still turn. But his father would never see another harvest, never sit by the fire on a cold evening, never laugh at one of Ren's jokes again. Where had he gone? Was there anything left of him? Or was it just nothing? And if death was the end of everything, what was the point of anything at all? Ren did not have answers. He did not know where to find them. He only knew that the life he had been living suddenly felt paper thin, like a painting of a life rather than the real thing, like going through motions that meant nothing. The restlessness he had always pushed away now burned in his chest like a fire. He could not ignore it any longer. Something was missing, something important, and he would not find it by staying here, doing what he had always done, waiting for his own turn to be lowered into the ground. One night, unable to sleep, Ren walked outside and stood in the yard. The stars were bright overhead, scattered across the darkness like seeds on black soil. The air was cold and still. The mountains were shadows against the sky, solid and silent, keeping their secrets. He thought about his father. He thought about his own life stretching ahead, year after year, planting and harvesting, growing old and weak, and then the same grave, the same incense smoke, the same silence. There had to be more than this. There had to be something that did not fade and fall away. Something real. Something lasting. Something that would remain when everything else was gone. He did not know what it was or where to find it. But he knew, with a certainty that surprised him, that he had to go looking. If he stayed here, he would spend the rest of his life wandering. And that, somehow, seemed worse than any danger the road might hold. The next morning, Ren told his mother he needed to leave for a while. She looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were tired and sad, but there was something else in them too. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. "I do not know where I am going," Ren said. "I do not know what I am looking for. I only know I cannot stay." His mother nodded slowly. "Your father felt that pull once too," she said quietly. "When he was young, before we married. But he stayed. He chose the farm, chose me, chose this life." She paused, her eyes distant. "I do not think he regretted it. But sometimes, late at night, I would catch him looking at those mountains the same way you do." She reached out and touched his face, her palm warm against his cheek. "Go," she said. "Find what you need to find. And when you find it, come home and tell me what the mountains look like from the other side." Ren packed a small bag with rice, dried vegetables, and a change of clothes. He took his father's old walking stick, the wood worn smooth from years of use. And as the sun rose over the valley, painting the fields gold and green, he set out on the road that led toward the mountains. He did not know where he was going. He did not have a map or a plan. He only knew that staying still was no longer possible. The great doubt had taken hold of him, and it would not let go. As he walked, Ren felt many things at once. Fear of the unknown road ahead. Grief for his father, still raw and heavy. Guilt for leaving his mother alone with the farm, and her sorrow. But beneath all of that, something else. A small flame of hope. A sense that his life was finally, truly beginning. The road stretched ahead, winding through fields and forests, climbing slowly toward the distant peaks. Ren did not know what he would find there. He did not know if he would find anything at all. But he was searching, and that was enough to begin. The first stage of awakening asks nothing more of us than this: to feel the ache and acknowledge the doubt, to admit that we are lost and that the life we have been living is not enough. This is not failure. This is courage and honesty. This is the beginning. The Buddha taught that recognizing suffering is the first step toward freedom. Not because suffering is good, but because honesty is necessary. We cannot find our way home until we admit we have wandered far. We cannot wake up until we realize we have been asleep. We cannot begin the search until we feel the absence of what we are searching for. So if you feel the great doubt stirring in you, if life seems hollow or confusing or strangely incomplete, know that you are not broken. You are waking up. The search has begun. And that search, however uncertain, however stumbling, is itself a kind of grace. And the path, though long and winding, leads somewhere worth going. Take a moment now to breathe, to feel where you are, to notice what is stirring in your own heart. Perhaps you have felt that same restlessness, that same quiet ache. If so, you are not alone, and you are already on the path. When you are ready, we will take the next step together. The second stage to stillness is called the footprints. In the ancient pictures, we see the same person who was lost in the tall grass, but now something has changed. They have found traces of the ox, hoofprints in the mud. The ox is still hidden, still out of sight, but for the first time, there is evidence that it exists. This stage marks a quiet but important shift. In the first stage, we recognized that we were lost. We felt the ache of dissatisfaction, the weight of questions we could not answer. We began to search, but we did not know what we were searching for. We wandered without direction, driven only by the sense that something was missing. Now, in the second stage, we discover that there is a path. We find signs that others have walked this way before us. We begin to believe, perhaps for the first time, that what we are looking for is real. The Buddha taught 4 noble truths. The first is the truth of suffering, which we explored in the previous stage. But the Buddha did not stop there. His third truth tells us that the end of suffering is possible. There is a way out. There is freedom. This might sound simple, but it is actually a revolution. When we are deep in confusion and doubt, it is easy to fall into despair. We can become cynics who believe that life is meaningless, that all searching is foolish, that peace is just a story people tell themselves to get through the night. The great doubt, if we get stuck in it, can harden into bitterness. We can lose faith not just in ourselves, but in the very possibility of change. But discovering the footprints changes everything. It shows us that the path is real. Others have found what we are looking for. The ox exists, and it can be found. We are not chasing shadows. In Buddhism, this discovery often comes through what are called the 3 jewels. The first jewel is the Buddha himself, the one who found the way. The second is the Dharma, his teachings, which point toward freedom. The third is the Sangha, the community of those who practice together. When we encounter any of these, we encounter the footprints. We find evidence that awakening is possible. This is why the second stage brings hope, but also humility. We have found the footprints, but we have not yet found the ox. We know the path exists, but we do not yet know where it leads. We are still beginners, still uncertain, still feeling our way forward in the dark. And that is exactly as it should be. Zen teaches us not to rush ahead, not to pretend we know more than we do. The footprints are enough for now. They give us direction. They give us faith. They tell us that if we keep walking, we will find what we seek. There is a famous Zen saying, "When the student is ready, the teacher appears." This does not mean that a teacher will magically show up at your door. It means that when we are truly open, truly searching, we begin to notice guidance everywhere. The world becomes our teacher. A falling leaf, a kind word from a stranger, a moment of silence in a busy day, the way light falls through a window in the afternoon. The footprints are all around us if we have eyes to see them. The path is already beneath our feet. if we have the courage to walk it. The Buddha spoke of this openness as a quality of mind. He said that we must approach the path like a traveler dying of thirst who has glimpsed a well in the distance. We do not know yet if the well has water. We do not know if we will be able to reach it. But we have seen it, and that sight changes everything. We are no longer wandering aimlessly. We have a direction. We know now that peace is possible, that wisdom is attainable, that the ache we have carried for so long can be healed. In Zen, this faith is not about believing in something we cannot see. It is about trusting our own experience. We have felt the footprints beneath our feet. We have sensed the presence of the ox, even if only for a moment. That experience is ours. No one can take it from us. And it is enough to keep us walking. The second stage teaches us patience. We want to find the ox right away. We want answers, certainty, arrival. But the path does not work that way. It unfolds one step at a time, one footprint at a time. We must learn to trust the process, to keep moving, even when we cannot see what lies ahead. The Buddha often compared the spiritual path to crossing a river. We stand on the shore of suffering and confusion. On the other side is peace and freedom. The footprints show us that the crossing is possible, but we still have to make the journey ourselves. No one can carry us. No one can walk for us. The footprints remind us that countless others have made this crossing before us. Teachers and sages, monks and ordinary people, all have walked this path and found what they were looking for. Their footprints mark the way. Their lives give us courage. So when you find a teaching that speaks to you, a person whose wisdom you trust, a moment of clarity that cuts through your confusion, pay attention. These are the footprints. These are the signs that you are on the right track. You may not understand everything yet. You may not know where the path leads, but you know it is real, and that is enough to take the next step. Ren walked for 3 days before the mountains grew close. The road wound through rice paddies and small villages, past farmers bent over their work and children playing in dusty lanes. Some people looked up as he passed, curious about this young man with the walking stick and the faraway look in his eyes. Others paid him no attention at all, absorbed in the rhythms of their own lives. He slept under trees when no inn was near, ate his rice cold, and kept moving. The walking stick his father had used for so many years fit perfectly in his hand, worn smooth by decades of gripping. Sometimes, holding it, Ren could almost feel his father's presence. Not as a ghost, but as a warmth, a steadiness, a reminder that he came from somewhere and someone. He did not know where he was going. He had heard of temples in the mountains, places where monks lived and meditated, but he did not know which mountain or which temple. He only knew he had to keep moving. Staying still felt like dying slowly. The road at least offered possibility. Each bend might reveal something new. On the third evening, as the sun sank toward the hills and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ren came to a small stream. An old woman was there, kneeling by the water, filling a clay jug. Her hair was white and pulled back from her face. Her hands, dipping into the stream, were gnarled and spotted with age. Ren stopped and waited for her to finish. When she stood, she looked at him with eyes that seemed to hold both kindness and amusement. "You look lost," she said. Ren hesitated. "I am looking for something," he said, "but I do not know what it is, or where to find it." The old woman laughed softly, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "That is the best kind of looking," she said. "The ones who think they know what they want usually miss it entirely." She studied him for a moment, her eyes moving over his dusty clothes, his tired face, the walking stick in his hand. Then she nodded, as if she had decided something. "There is a temple," she said, "high in the mountains past the village of stone bridges. It is not easy to find and harder to reach, but the monks there are wise. They have helped many who were lost." "What is it called?" Ren asked. "It has many names," the old woman said, "but the one I know is the Temple of Still Water. You will know it when you see it. The path to the gate is lined with pine trees, and the sound of a bell carries down the mountain at dawn and dusk." She lifted her water jug and settled it against her hip. "Whether you find what you are looking for, I cannot say. But you will not find it by standing here." "Thank you," Ren said. "How do I reach the village of stone bridges?" The old woman pointed up the road, toward where the mountains rose dark against the fading sky. "Follow this path until it forks. Take the left way toward the tallest peak. You will cross 3 rivers. After the 3rd river, you will see the village. From there, ask for the path to still water." She began to walk away, moving slowly but steadily toward a small cottage Ren had not noticed before. "Wait," Ren called. "How do you know about this temple? Have you been there?" The old woman paused and looked back at him. Her face was half in shadow now, the last light of the sun catching the white of her hair. "I went there once," she said. "Many years ago, when I was lost, like you." She smiled, and there was something in that smile that Ren could not quite name. Peace, maybe. Or a quiet certainty. "The ox leaves footprints everywhere, young man. You just have to learn to see them." Then she turned and walked into the gathering dusk, and Ren was alone again by the stream. He stood there for a long time, watching the water flow past, thinking about what she had said. The ox leaves footprints everywhere. He did not fully understand, but the words settled into him like stones dropping into a pond. That night, Ren made camp beneath a large oak tree. He ate the last of his rice and watched the stars appear one by one. He thought about his father, about the farm, about the life he had left behind. He thought about the old woman and her strange words. For the first time since he had left home, he felt something other than grief and confusion. It was small, fragile, easy to miss. But it was there. A flicker of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, he was on the right path. He did not know what he would find at the Temple of Still Water. He did not know if the monks could help him. But the old woman had been there. She had been lost, like him, and she had found something. Whatever it was, it had given her that smile, that peace in her eyes. If she could find it, maybe he could too. The next morning, Ren rose before dawn. The air was cool and damp, mist rising from the stream like breath. He drank deeply from the clear water, shouldered his small pack, and set out on the road. The path forked just as the old woman had said. Ren took the left way, toward the tallest peak, which rose above the others like a monk standing among children. The road grew steeper, the trees thicker. Birds sang in the branches overhead, and once he saw a deer watching him from behind a screen of ferns. He crossed the first river on stepping stones, the water cold and fast around his ankles. He crossed the second on a wooden bridge, so old it creaked with every step. He crossed the third by wading through, the water reaching his waist, his pack held high above his head. By late afternoon, wet and tired, he saw the village. It was small, just a cluster of houses built from grey stone, but there were indeed bridges everywhere. Small stone bridges over tiny streams, arched bridges over drainage channels, flat bridges over paths that led from house to house. It was as if the village had been built by someone who loved bridges more than anything else in the world. Ren found an inn and paid for a bowl of hot soup and a place to sleep. The innkeeper was a large man with a kind face and a booming voice. "The Temple of Still Water," he said when Ren asked. "Yes, I know it. Many pass through here on the way. Seekers, we call them. Lost ones looking for something they cannot name." He smiled, not unkindly. The path begins at the north end of the village, past the largest bridge. Follow it up the mountain. It will take you most of a day, but you will find it. The pine trees will show you the way. That night, Ren slept deeply for the first time in weeks. He dreamed of his father, but it was not a sad dream. His father was smiling, standing in the fields they had worked together, the sun warm on his face. The rice plant swayed in a gentle breeze, green and gold. His father did not say anything. He just nodded, once, as if giving permission, as if saying, "Go on, find what you need to find. I will be here when you return." Ren woke with tears on his face, but they were not tears of grief. They were something else. Relief, maybe, or gratitude, or the release of something he had been holding too tightly. He wiped them away and lay still for a moment, feeling the weight of the blanket on his body, the solid floor beneath him, the quiet of the room around him. He was still lost. He still did not know what he was looking for, or if he would find it. But he was no longer wandering without direction. He had found the footprints. He knew where to go next. Someone had been lost like him, and had found their way. The old woman by the stream, with her white hair and her knowing smile. She had walked this path before him. And that was enough. That was more than enough. The second stage of awakening does not give us all the answers. It does not end our confusion or remove our doubts. What it gives us is direction, evidence, a reason to keep walking when we are tired and unsure. When we discover the footprints, we discover that we are not alone. Others have felt what we feel. Others have asked the questions we are asking. And some of them have found answers. Their footprints mark the way forward. Their lives tell us that the journey is worth making. This does not mean our journey is over. It is just beginning. The footprints are not the ox. Seeing where others have walked is not the same as seeing our own true nature. But now we walk with a different spirit. We walk with hope instead of despair. We walk with faith that the path leads somewhere real. The Buddha taught that faith is not the end of the path but the beginning. It is the fuel that keeps us moving when the way is hard. It is the light that guides us when the night is dark. It is not blind belief, but trust born from experience. We have seen the footprints. We have met those who have found the way. And so we keep walking. If you have found the footprints, if you have glimpsed the possibility of peace, trust that glimpse. It is showing you something true. You may not understand it fully. You may not know where it leads. But it is real, and it is enough. Keep walking. The ox is closer than you think. Pause for a moment before we continue together. The third step to peace is called perceiving the ox. In the traditional picture, we see the seeker finally catching a glimpse of the ox itself. Not the whole animal, perhaps just a tail disappearing behind a tree, or a flash of movement in the distance. But it is unmistakable. The ox is real. It exists. And for the first time, we have seen it with our own eyes. This is a turning point on the path. In the first stage, we felt lost and confused. In the second, we found footprints that gave us hope and direction. Now, in the third stage, we experience something directly. We catch a glimpse of our true nature. We taste, even briefly, the peace we have been searching for. In Zen, this experience is called kensho, which means seeing one's true nature. It is sometimes described as a flash of insight, a moment when the veil lifts and we see things as they really are. The boundaries we normally draw between self and world, between inner and outer, seem to dissolve. Everything becomes vivid, immediate, alive. We feel connected to something vast, something that was always here but somehow hidden from view. This glimpse can come in many ways. It might happen during meditation, when the mind grows still and something deeper reveals itself. It might happen in nature, standing beneath a sky full of stars or watching waves break on a shore. It might happen in an ordinary moment, washing dishes or walking down a street, when suddenly everything shifts and the world becomes new. We cannot force it to happen. We can only create the conditions for it, and then let go. The Buddha spoke of this kind of insight as seeing things as they truly are. He taught that our ordinary way of perceiving is clouded by ignorance, by the endless commentary of the thinking mind. We do not see reality directly. We see our ideas about reality, our memories, our expectations, our fears and hopes. We see through a filter of concepts and judgments, and we mistake this filtered view for the truth. But in moments of clear seeing, all of that falls away. We perceive without the filter of thought, and what we perceive is extraordinary. Zen masters often describe this experience in simple, almost ordinary terms. One master said that after his awakening, mountains were once again mountains, and rivers were once again rivers. Before practice, we see mountains and rivers as solid, separate things. During practice, we begin to see through them, to understand their emptiness and impermanence. But after glimpsing our true nature, we see them fresh again. They are just what they are, vivid and complete, needing no explanation. This is the gift of the third stage. We stop searching and start seeing. We stop thinking about peace and actually taste it. Even if only for a moment, we know directly what all the teachings have been pointing toward. But here is an important truth that Zen emphasizes again and again. This glimpse is not the end of the path. It is barely the beginning. Many seekers make the mistake of thinking that one powerful experience is enough. They have seen the ox, so they believe the search is over. They cling to the memory of their glimpse, trying to recreate it, talking about it endlessly, wearing it like a badge of achievement. But this is a trap. The glimpse itself is not awakening. It is just a glimpse. In early Buddhism, there is a concept called stream entry. It refers to the moment when a practitioner first directly perceives the truth of the teachings. They have entered the stream that leads to full liberation. But entering the stream is not the same as reaching the ocean. There is still a long way to go. A teacher in the Pali Canon used this analogy. Imagine a traveler dying of thirst in the desert. They come upon a well, and looking down, they can see the water far below. They know now that water exists. They have seen it with their own eyes. But they cannot yet drink. They do not have a rope or a bucket. The seeing is real, but it is not enough. This is the situation of someone in the third stage. They have seen the ox. They know it is real. But they have not yet caught it, not yet tamed it, not yet made it their own. The glimpse gives them faith and motivation. It tells them the path is true. But the real work is still ahead. Zen practice is full of stories about students who had powerful glimpses and thought they were finished. They would go to their teacher, excited and proud, eager to share their experience. And the teacher would send them back to the meditation hall. "Keep practicing," the teacher would say. "You have seen the ox, but you have not caught it yet." This might seem discouraging, but it is actually a kindness. The teacher knows that clinging to a glimpse will only cause suffering. The student will spend years trying to get back to that special moment instead of moving forward. They will become stuck, trapped by their own experience. The true gift of the third stage is not the experience itself, but what it reveals. It shows us that peace is possible. It shows us that our true nature is always here, waiting to be discovered. It gives us a direction, a North Star to navigate by. But we must keep walking. We must turn the glimpse into a way of life. The Buddha did not stop practicing after his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. He continued for the rest of his life, meditating, teaching, refining his understanding. The glimpse of awakening is like opening a door. We see what lies beyond, but we must still walk through the door and explore the territory. We must make it our home. There is a Zen saying, "Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water." The activities are the same. What changes is how we relate to them. Before the glimpse, we are lost in thought, distracted, separate from our experience. After the glimpse, we know there is another way to be. But knowing is not enough. We must embody that knowing in every moment, every action, every breath. This is why Zen emphasizes practice over experience. Experiences come and go. They are wonderful when they happen, but they cannot be held. What remains is how we live. Do we bring presence and awareness to our daily lives? Do we treat others with kindness? Do we respond to difficulty with patience rather than reaction? These are the real measures of progress, not how many glimpses we have had. So if you have had a glimpse, a moment when everything seemed clear and whole, be grateful. It is a precious gift. But do not stop there. Do not cling to the memory or try to force it to happen again. Let it inspire you to keep practicing, keep seeking, keep opening. The ox is real. You have seen it. Now the journey truly begins. Ren climbed the mountain path for most of the day. The way was steep and rocky, winding through thick forest. Pine trees rose tall on either side, their branches casting patterns of light and shadow on the ground. The air smelled of earth and resin, clean and sharp in his lungs. Birds called from somewhere in the canopy, their songs echoing through the stillness. He stopped often to catch his breath, leaning on his father's walking stick, looking up at the path ahead. The innkeeper had told him it would take most of a day, and he had not been wrong. Ren's legs ached. His pack felt heavier with each step, but he kept moving, drawn forward by something he could not name. In the late afternoon, as the light began to turn golden, Ren came around a bend in the path and saw them, 2 rows of ancient pine trees, their trunks gnarled and massive, lining the way ahead like patient guardians. At the end of the row, he could see a wooden gate, simple and weathered. Beyond it, the curved roofs of temple buildings, the temple of still water. As Ren stood there, catching his breath, a bell began to ring somewhere within the temple grounds. Deep and resonant, the sound rolled down the mountain like a wave. He felt it in his chest, in his bones. It seemed to wash through him, carrying away some of the tension he had not even known he was holding. He walked between the pine trees toward the gate. His footsteps were quiet on the packed earth. The bell rang again, then fell silent. In the stillness that followed, Ren heard the faint sound of water, a stream or fountain somewhere nearby. At the gate, he paused. He did not know what to do. Should he knock? Call out? He stood there, uncertain, feeling suddenly foolish. What was he doing here? What did he expect to find? Before he could decide, the gate swung open. A monk stood in the doorway, dressed in simple grey robes. He was old, perhaps 70 or 80, with a shaved head and a face that seemed carved from weathered wood. But his eyes were bright, alive with something Ren could not quite identify. Amusement, maybe, or patience, or kindness. "You look like you have walked a long way," the monk said. Ren nodded. "I have come from the valley. 3 days walking, then the climb today." "And what brings you to still water?" Ren opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. What could he say? That his father had died and he did not know how to go on living? That he had felt a restlessness his whole life and could not ignore it anymore? That an old woman by a stream had told him to come here? "I do not know," he said finally. "I am looking for something, but I cannot say what it is." The old monk nodded slowly, as if this was exactly the right answer. "My name is Sun," he said. "I am the abbot here. Come, we will find you a place to rest and some food. The questions can wait until you have eaten." Ren followed Master Sun through the gate and into the temple grounds. There were several buildings arranged around a central courtyard, all built from dark wood and grey stone. A small stream ran along one edge, its water clear and cold, feeding into a pond where orange and white fish drifted beneath the surface. Everywhere there was silence, a living silence, full of presence. Other monks moved through the grounds, some carrying water, others sweeping paths or tending to a small garden. They nodded to Ren as he passed, but did not speak. Their faces were calm, unhurried. They moved with a kind of ease that Ren had never seen before, as if they had nowhere else to be, nothing else to do. Master Sun led him to a small room in one of the buildings. There was a sleeping mat, a low table, a window that looked out onto the pine trees. Nothing more. "Rest here," Sun said. "Someone will bring food. In the morning, we will talk." "Thank you," Ren said. He wanted to say more, to explain himself, to ask questions. But something in the old monk's presence made words seem unnecessary. Sun smiled, just slightly. "You have already begun," he said. "That is enough for now." Then he was gone, and Ren was alone. He set down his pack and walked to the window. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and deep red. The pine trees stood dark against the light, their branches still. From somewhere in the temple, he heard the sound of chanting, low and rhythmic, rising and falling like breath, like the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Ren stood there for a long time, watching the light fade. He did not think about his father or the farm or the life he had left behind. He did not think about the future or what he hoped to find. He simply stood and watched, and for a few minutes his mind was quiet. That night, he slept more deeply than he had in months. The days that followed settled into a rhythm. Ren was given tasks, sweeping the courtyard, carrying water from the stream, helping in the kitchen. No one spoke much. The monks went about their work in silence, and Ren learned to do the same. Each morning, before dawn, the bell would ring and the monks would gather in the main hall to sit in meditation. Ren joined them, folding his legs beneath him on a small cushion, trying to still his racing mind. It was harder than he expected. Much harder. His thoughts jumped from memory to memory, worry to worry, plan to plan. His legs ached. His back grew sore. He counted the minutes until the bell signaled the end, longing to move, to stretch, to be anywhere else. But slowly, over days and weeks, something began to shift. One morning, about a month after his arrival, Ren was sweeping leaves in the courtyard. It was early, the air still cool, mist rising from the pond. He moved the broom in slow arcs, gathering the fallen leaves into small piles. His mind, for once, was not racing. He was simply sweeping. Nothing more. And then, without warning, something opened. Later, he would not be able to describe it properly. It was as if a door had swung wide inside him. A door he had not known was there. The courtyard was still the courtyard. The leaves were still leaves. The sound of the stream, the call of a bird, the cool air on his skin. Everything was exactly as it had been a moment before. But everything was also different. Vivid. Alive. Present in a way it had never been before. The boundary between Ren and the world seemed to dissolve. He was not separate from the courtyard, the trees, the morning light. He was part of it all, woven into it, inseparable from it. The broom in his hands, the ground beneath his feet, the mist rising from the pond. All of it was one thing, one seamless whole, and he was not outside it looking in. He was it. There was no fear in this, no confusion, only a vast, quiet peace. A sense of having come home to something he had always known but somehow forgotten. He did not know how long it lasted. Seconds, maybe. A minute at most. And then the door closed, and he was Ren again, standing in the courtyard with a broom in his hands, blinking in the morning light. But he knew something had changed. He had seen something, felt something. He could not name it, could not explain it. But it was real, more real than anything he had ever experienced. He looked down at the leaves scattered around his feet. Just leaves, brown and gold and red, but beautiful, impossibly beautiful. Later that day, Ren sought out Master Sun. He found the old monk sitting by the pond, watching the fish drift through the water. "Something happened this morning," Ren said. "While I was sweeping, I do not know how to describe it." Sun did not look up from the pond. "You do not need to describe it," he said. "You saw something. That is enough." "But what was it? What does it mean?" Now Sun turned to look at him. His eyes were kind, but there was a firmness in them too. "It means you have seen the ox," he said. "You have glimpsed your true nature. This is a gift, but it is not the end. What do I do now?" "Now?" Sun turned back to the pond. A fish rose to the surface, its mouth opening and closing, then sank again into the depths. "Now you keep sweeping." The third stage of awakening brings us a gift and a challenge. The gift is the glimpse itself, the direct experience of our true nature. For perhaps the first time, we know that what we have been seeking is real. We have tasted it. We have felt it. This knowing cannot be taken from us. The challenge is not to cling to it. Zen teaches that experiences, even profound ones, are not the goal. They are signposts, pointing the way. The glimpse shows us that peace is possible, that our searching has not been in vain. But we must not mistake the signpost for the destination. We must not spend our lives trying to return to a single moment, however beautiful it was. If you have had such a moment, a time when the world seemed suddenly whole and you felt at peace, honor it. Let it strengthen your faith. Let it remind you why you are on this path. But then let it go. Return to your practice. Return to your daily life. Return to sweeping the courtyard, to washing the dishes, to all the ordinary moments that make up a human life. This is where awakening lives. Not in special experiences, but in how we meet each moment as it comes. The ox is real. You have seen it. Now the real work begins. Pause for a moment before we continue together. The fourth stage of awakening is called catching the ox. In the traditional picture, we see the seeker finally taking hold of the ox. But the ox is wild and strong, pulling away, fighting to escape. The seeker grips the rope with both hands, straining with effort, feet planted in the earth. This is not a gentle scene. It is a struggle. In the previous stage, we glimpsed our true nature. We saw the ox, perhaps just for a moment, and knew that what we were seeking was real. But seeing is not the same as catching. A glimpse is not a way of life. Now comes the hard work of making that glimpse permanent, of training the wild mind to stay present, to stop running away into distraction and confusion. Zen calls this stage the great effort. The Buddha himself spoke of right effort as one of the steps on the Noble Eightfold Path. He described it as the effort to abandon unwholesome states, to cultivate wholesome ones, and to maintain what has been cultivated. This is not passive. This is work. Real work. There is a famous Zen story about a student who came to a master seeking enlightenment. "How long will it take?" the student asked. 10 years, said the master. "What if I work twice as hard?" asked the student. "Then 20 years, the master replied. The student was confused. "Why longer?" The master smiled. "When one eye is fixed on the goal, only one eye is left to find the way." This story holds a paradox at the heart of spiritual effort. We must work hard, but we must not be attached to the results of our work. We must try, but we must also let go. We must catch the ox, but we cannot force it to be caught. The effort is not about achieving something. It is about showing up fully in each moment. The Buddha compared the mind to a wild elephant, untamed and dangerous. Left to its own ways, it will trample everything in its path. But with patient training, it can become a powerful ally. The ox in these pictures represents the same thing. Our true nature is not the problem. The problem is that we have let the mind run wild for so long that it no longer knows how to be still. The practice at this stage often involves sitting meditation, what Zen calls zazen. We sit still. We watch the breath, and we see, perhaps for the first time, how wild the mind really is. Thoughts arise without end. Memories, fantasies, worries, plans. The mind jumps from one thing to another like a monkey swinging through trees. The Buddha actually used this image. He called it the monkey mind, always grasping, never at rest. But we do not fight the monkey mind. We do not try to kill our thoughts or force them to stop. That would be like trying to calm a pool of water by slapping the surface. It only creates more waves. Instead, we simply watch. We notice when we have wandered, and we come back. Again and again and again. This is the effort. Not the effort to control, but the effort to return. To keep coming back to this moment, this breath, this simple act of being present. A teacher once said that meditation is not about getting somewhere. It is about being where you are. The effort is simply to stay, to not run away, to face whatever arises with patience and courage. This sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest things a human being can do. The whole world is designed to pull us away from the present moment. Our own minds are designed to pull us away. To sit still and stay present, even for a few minutes, is a revolutionary act. There is an old Zen story about a monk who asked his teacher, "What is the Buddha?" The teacher replied, "The mind is the Buddha." Years later, the same monk asked again, and the teacher said, "No mind, no Buddha." The monk was confused. "But you said before that the mind is the Buddha." The teacher nodded. That was to stop a baby from crying. Now the baby has stopped. We can put the toy away. This story points to something important. The effort of catching the ox is necessary, but it is not the final truth. We need the rope and the struggle to begin the process of taming. But eventually, we must let go of even the effort. We must stop trying so hard and simply be. The fourth stage is about learning to try. The stages that follow are about learning to let go. The weeks after Ren's glimpse in the courtyard were the most difficult of his life. He had expected things to get easier. He had seen something real, something vast and peaceful. Surely that meant the hard part was over. Surely now the path would open before him, clear and smooth, and he would walk it with ease. But that is not what happened. Instead, the glimpse faded like a dream upon waking. He tried to hold on to it, to remember exactly how it had felt, but the harder he grasped, the further it slipped away. Within days, he was back where he started, confused, restless, his mind racing from thought to thought, like a startled animal looking for somewhere to hide. Master Sun had told him to keep sweeping, so he swept. He carried water from the stream, the wooden buckets heavy on his shoulders. He helped in the kitchen, chopping vegetables in silence, scrubbing pots until his hands were red. He sat in the meditation hall with the other monks, morning and evening, trying to find his way back to that moment of peace. But the meditation was difficult. He would settle onto his cushion, arrange his legs, straighten his spine the way he had been taught. He would close his eyes and try to follow his breath. In, out. In, out. Simple. The most simple thing in the world. And for perhaps 3 breaths, he would be present. Then his mind would seize on something. A memory of his father standing in the fields, leaning on a hoe. A worry about his mother alone on the farm, growing older, no one to help her. A fantasy about what he would do after he left the temple, where he would go, who he would become. An itch on his nose, a pain in his knee, the smell of incense making him think of the funeral. Before he knew it, 5 minutes had passed, and he had been lost in thought the entire time. He would catch himself, feel a flash of frustration, and try again. In, out. In, out. And again his mind would run away. Again he would catch himself. Again he would feel frustrated. Again he would try. This went on for hours, for days, for weeks. Ren began to wonder if something was wrong with him. The other monks sat so still, so peaceful. Their faces were calm, their breathing steady. They looked like statues, like they had found some secret he could not access. Meanwhile, his mind was a storm, a whirlwind, a wild animal thrashing against its cage. How could they be so quiet when he was in such chaos? One evening, after a particularly difficult sitting, Ren stayed behind in the meditation hall. The other monks filed out silently, but he remained on his cushion, head bowed, fighting back tears of frustration. He felt like a failure. He felt like he would never get this right. He heard footsteps approach. When he looked up, Master Sun was standing before him, his grey robes catching the last light from the windows. "You are struggling," Sun said. It was not a question. "I cannot do this," Ren said. His voice cracked. "My mind will not be still. No matter how hard I try, it keeps running away. I had that moment in the courtyard, that glimpse, and now it is gone. I cannot find my way back. I have tried everything." Sun lowered himself onto a cushion facing Ren. His old bones creaked, but his movements were unhurried, graceful. He sat in silence for a moment, as if considering what to say. "Do you know why we call this stage catching the ox?" he asked finally. Ren shook his head. "Because the ox does not want to be caught. It is wild. It has been running free for a long time, your whole life in fact, and it does not understand why you want to put a rope around its neck. So it fights. It pulls. It runs. This is natural. This is how it must be. You are not doing anything wrong. But how do I catch it if it keeps running away?" Sun was quiet for a moment. Outside, the evening insects had begun their chorus. The last light of the sun was fading from the windows, turning the hall golden, then grey. "You do not catch it by force," he said finally. "You catch it by patience, by showing up again and again, no matter how many times it runs. You hold the rope loosely. You do not fight. You simply stay. Eventually, the ox tires. Eventually, it learns that you are not trying to hurt it. Eventually, it lets you lead." "How long does that take?" Sun smiled, and there was kindness in it, but also something else. A firmness. A truth that could not be softened. "As long as it takes. There is no shortcut. If you try to rush, you will only make it harder. The ox senses your impatience, your grasping, and it runs faster. But if you can let go of your need to succeed, if you can simply be present with what is, then the catching happens by itself." Ren looked down at his hands. They were clenched into fists. He had not noticed. "I am afraid," he said quietly. "I am afraid that I will never catch it. That I will sit here for years and nothing will change. That I am wasting my time." "That fear is natural too," Sun said. "Everyone who walks this path feels it. But I will tell you something. The fact that you are struggling means you are doing it right. If it were easy, it would not be real. The struggle is the practice. The falling down and getting up, again and again. That is the path. There is no other path." He reached out and placed a hand on Ren's shoulder. The touch was light, but it seemed to carry weight, as if passing something on. Do not try to be a good meditator. Just sit. Do not try to catch the ox. Just hold the rope. Let go of your ideas about how this should look, how you should feel, how far along you should be by now. Be with what is. That is enough. That has always been enough. Ren took a deep breath. The tightness in his chest loosened, just a little. Now, Sun said, rising to his feet with the slow care of an old man who knows his body well. It is time for evening rice. Even the ox must eat. Despite himself, Ren smiled. The days that followed were still difficult. His mind still raced. His legs still ached. He still lost himself in thought 100 times each sitting. But something had shifted. He no longer fought himself quite so hard. When his mind wandered, he noticed it, and he came back. No judgment. No frustration. Just a gentle returning, like a mother calling a child home for dinner, like a shepherd guiding a lamb back to the flock. Some days were better than others. Some sittings were peaceful, his mind settling like water in a still pond, reflecting the sky. Other sittings were storms, his thoughts crashing against each other like waves in a gale, dark and churning. He learned not to prefer one over the other. He learned to sit through both. The calm sittings were not successes. The stormy sittings were not failures. They were just sittings, just moments of practice, just holding the rope. He noticed things he had not noticed before. The way the light changed throughout the day in the meditation hall. The sound of birds outside the windows. The texture of his breath, sometimes smooth, sometimes ragged. The sensations in his body, constantly shifting, arising and passing away. He began to see that everything was like this. Nothing stayed the same. Even his struggles were impermanent, changing from moment to moment. Slowly, so slowly he almost did not notice, the ox began to tire. He would catch himself present for 5 breaths, then 10, then 20. He would notice the moment a thought arose before it carried him away, and he would have a choice. He could follow the thought, or he could let it go. He could not always let it go. But sometimes he could. And each time he did, the rope grew a little more slack. One morning, during sitting, Ren felt something settle in his chest. Not the vast opening he had experienced in the courtyard. Something quieter, smaller. A small, steady flame. A sense that he was exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what he needed to do. Not special, not enlightened, just present, just here. He did not try to hold on to it. He did not tell himself this was important or that he had finally made progress. He simply noticed it, the way he noticed his breath, the way he noticed the light coming through the window, the way he noticed everything that arose and passed away. And then the bell rang, and he rose, and he went to sweep the courtyard. The ox was not tamed yet, but it was no longer running quite so fast, and Ren was learning to be patient. The 4th stage teaches us that awakening is not a gift given freely. It must be earned through patience and persistence, not through force, not through willpower alone, but through the simple courage to keep showing up, day after day, breath after breath, even when it feels like nothing is happening. There is a beautiful teaching in Zen that says the practice itself is enlightenment. We do not practice in order to become enlightened someday in the future. The sitting, the returning, the patient holding of the rope, this is awakening. It is happening right now, in this moment, whether we recognize it or not. If you are in this stage now, struggling with your practice, feeling like you are failing more than you are succeeding, take heart. The struggle itself is proof that you are on the path. The falling down is part of the getting up. The wandering is part of the returning. Keep holding the rope. Keep showing up. Keep breathing. The ox is tiring, and you are stronger than you know. Pause for a moment before we continue together. The fifth stage of awakening is called taming the ox. In the traditional picture, we see something new. The seeker still holds the rope, but it hangs loose now. The ox walks calmly beside them. There is no more struggle, no more straining. The wild animal that once fought and pulled has become gentle. This is the stage where practice begins to feel natural. In the fourth stage, we struggled. We fought with our wandering mind. We forced ourselves to sit. We wrestled with restlessness and doubt. It was hard, exhausting work. But somewhere along the way, without quite noticing when it happened, something shifted. The fighting stopped. The ox learned to trust us, and we learned to trust ourselves. This shift is not something we can force. It comes in its own time, after enough hours of patient practice, after enough gentle returnings. One day we simply notice that sitting is no longer a battle. The mind still moves, thoughts still arise, but we are no longer at war with them. We have made peace with our own nature. The Buddha spoke often about the nature of the mind. He said that the mind, in its original state, is luminous and pure. It is only the visiting defilements, the passing clouds of craving and aversion and confusion that obscure its natural clarity. Our work is not to create peace but to uncover it. Not to become something new but to remember what we have always been. This teaching is important for understanding the fifth stage. We are not forcing the ox into submission. We are not breaking its spirit or bending it to our will. We are simply allowing it to return to its natural state. The wildness was never its true nature. The wildness was confusion, agitation, the restlessness of a mind that had forgotten its own stillness. When we stop adding fuel to that restlessness, it burns itself out. When the ox becomes tame, it is not because we have defeated it. It is because we have befriended it. We have shown it, through countless hours of patient practice, that we are not a threat. We have earned its trust. And in earning its trust, we have discovered something surprising. The ox wants to be tamed. The mind longs for peace. Beneath all its racing and grasping and running away, there is a deep desire to come home. Zen master Bankei taught that we all possess what he called the unborn Buddha mind. This mind is already perfect, already at peace, already awake. We do not need to create it or achieve it. We only need to stop interfering with it. Our constant thinking, our endless commentary on experience, Our habit of turning everything into a problem to be solved, this is what disturbs the natural stillness. When we learn to let thoughts arise and pass without grabbing onto them, the mind settles by itself, like muddy water becoming clear when we stop stirring it. This does not mean we stop having thoughts. Even the most advanced practitioners still think. But the relationship to thought changes. Thoughts come and go like clouds crossing the sky, and we watch them pass without being carried away. We are no longer at the mercy of every mental event. We have found a deeper place to stand, a stillness beneath the movement, a silence beneath the noise. In this fifth stage, we still hold the rope. We have not let go completely. Craving and confusion can still arise, and when they do, we need to be ready. But the rope is loose. We do not grip it with white knuckles anymore. There is ease now, and a growing confidence. We have been through the struggle. We have seen that persistence works. We know now that we can handle whatever arises. The practice at this stage becomes less about effort and more about allowing. We sit in meditation, and instead of trying to make something happen, we simply let things be as they are. Thoughts arise, and we let them go. Sensations come and pass, and we do not cling or resist. There is a quality of surrender, of yielding, that was not present before. We have stopped fighting with ourselves. This is a beautiful stage, and there is a temptation to stop here. After all the struggle, we have finally found some peace. The ox is tame. We can rest. Why keep going? But Zen reminds us that this is still not the end. We are still holding the rope. We are still relating to our true nature as something separate from ourselves, something we must watch and manage. There is still a subtle duality, a sense of the meditator and the meditation, the herder and the ox. The stages that follow will dissolve even this. For now, though, we can appreciate how far we have come. We can rest in the ease of a tamed mind. We can enjoy the simple pleasure of sitting without struggle, of walking without hurry, of being present without effort. Ren had been at the Temple of Still Water for nearly a year. The seasons had turned completely around. He had arrived in autumn, with the leaves falling and the air growing cold. He had struggled through winter, sitting in the freezing meditation hall, his breath visible in the dim morning light. He had watched spring arrive, the plum trees blooming, the streams swelling with snowmelt, and now it was summer, warm and green, the cicadas singing in the pines. Somewhere in that turning of seasons, something had changed. He noticed it first in small ways. He would sit down on his cushion in the morning, and instead of the familiar dread, the bracing for another battle with his mind, he felt something like anticipation. Not excitement exactly, but a quiet willingness, a sense of settling into something familiar and good. His mind still wandered during meditation. That had not stopped. But the wandering felt different now. Less frantic, less like being dragged away by a wild animal, and more like watching leaves drift downstream. The thoughts would arise, he would notice them, and they would pass. Sometimes he followed them for a while before catching himself. But the catching was gentle now. No frustration, no judgment. Just a quiet return, like coming home after a short walk. One morning, sitting in the meditation hall, Ren realized he had lost track of time. The bell rang to signal the end of the sitting, and he was surprised. It felt like only minutes had passed, but when he opened his eyes, the light had changed. An hour had gone by, and he had simply been present for it. Not fighting, not straining, just sitting, just breathing, just being here. This began to happen more often. The sittings would pass without struggle, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but always with a sense of ease that had once seemed impossible. He remembered his early days at the temple, how each minute had felt like an hour, how he had counted breaths and shifted his weight and longed for the bell. That felt like another lifetime now. Another person entirely. He found Master Sun in the garden later that day, pruning a small pine tree. The old monk worked slowly, carefully, each cut deliberate. He had been tending these trees for decades, and it showed. They were beautiful, shaped by patience and attention into forms that seemed both natural and intentional. Ren watched for a moment before speaking. "Something is different," he said. Sun did not look up from his work. "Different how?" "The sitting. It is not so hard anymore. My mind still moves, but I do not fight it like I used to. It feels more natural now, like something I want to do instead of something I have to do." Sun made another careful cut. A small branch fell to the ground. "Good," he said simply. "Is this what it is supposed to feel like?" Now Sun paused and looked at him. His eyes, as always, held that mixture of kindness and clarity that Ren had come to trust completely. "There is no supposed to," Sun said. "There is only what is. But yes, this is part of the path. The ox is becoming tame." "It does not feel like I did anything," Ren said. "It feels like it just happened. Like I woke up one day and the struggle was gone." Sun smiled at this, a rare full smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "That is often how it works. We struggle and struggle, thinking we must force it, thinking our effort is what will make the difference, and then one day we wake up and the struggle is over. We do not know when it ended or how. We only know that it has. The effort was necessary, but it was not the cause. It was more like tilling the soil. The growing happens on its own." He returned to his pruning. Ren stood there a moment longer, watching the careful movements of the old monk's hands. "Master Sun?" "Yes." "Why do we still practice once it becomes easy? Why keep sitting if the struggle is over?" Sun considered this for a moment. "A gardener does not stop tending the garden once the plants are healthy," he said. "He still waters them. He still pulls weeds. He still watches for signs of disease or pests. The work becomes easier, yes, but it does not stop. The tamed ox can still wander off if we are not paying attention. The clear mind can still become clouded." He snipped another small branch and stepped back to look at the tree. "But there is another reason," he continued. "We practice not just to maintain what we have gained, but to deepen it. There are stages beyond taming. You will see. But do not rush toward them. Be here now. Enjoy the ease. You have earned it." Ren bowed and left the old monk to his gardening. The summer days were long and warm. Ren found himself appreciating things he had not noticed before. The coolness of the stone floor in the meditation hall in the early morning. The taste of rice, simple and clean, each grain distinct. The way the light filtered through the pine branches in the afternoon, making patterns on the ground that shifted with the breeze. The smell of incense that had once reminded him of his father's funeral now simply smelled like the temple, like home. He was given more responsibility at the temple. He helped teach the newer students how to sit, how to hold their posture, how to return when they wandered. He remembered his own early struggles, the frustration and doubt, and spoke to them gently. He recognized himself in their tense shoulders and tight jaws, in the way they tried too hard. "Do not fight yourself," he would tell them. "The more you fight, the harder it becomes. Just notice when you have wandered and come back. That is all. The returning is the practice. Not the staying, the returning. You will wander 1,000 times. That is fine. Just return 1,001. He watched them struggle as he had struggled, and he felt compassion for them. He also felt something like gratitude. The struggle had taught him something that ease never could. It had shown him his own strength, his own persistence. It had shown him that he could face difficulty and not run away. One of the younger monks, a boy of perhaps 17 who had arrived a few months ago, asked Ren how long it took before the sitting became easy. "I do not know," Ren said honestly. "It happened slowly and then all at once. One day I realized it was no longer hard, but I could not tell you which day that was." "Did you ever want to leave?" the boy asked. "Many times," Ren said. "Especially in the beginning. I thought I was wasting my time. I thought nothing was happening. But you stayed." "I stayed. I did not know what else to do. Leaving felt like giving up on something important, even though I could not say what." The boy nodded slowly, taking this in. Ren remembered being that young, that unsure. It seemed like a long time ago now. One evening, he sat by the pond and watched the fish swimming lazily beneath the surface. The water was clear and still, reflecting the pink and orange of the sunset like a second sky. He felt a deep contentment, a sense of being exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was supposed to do. He thought about his father, about the farm, about the life he had left behind. The grief was still there, but it had softened. It no longer felt like a wound. It felt more like a scar, a mark of something that had healed. He could think of his father now with gratitude instead of pain, with love instead of loss. He thought about his mother, alone in the village. He wondered if she was well, if the neighbors were helping her, if she thought of him. He would go back someday, he knew. Not yet, but someday. And when he did, he would bring her something. Not a thing, not a gift you could hold in your hands, but a way of being, a presence, a peace. He would sit with her the way Master Sun sat with him, patient and kind, asking nothing, offering everything. The fish rose to the surface, mouths opening and closing, then sank again into the depths. The water rippled for a moment, then went still. Ren smiled. The ox was tame. The rope was loose. And the evening was beautiful. He sat there until the stars came out, one by one, appearing in the darkening sky like old friends arriving for a gathering. He did not think about anything in particular. He did not try to meditate or be mindful or practice anything at all. He simply sat, present to the evening, present to his own life, grateful for both. When the temple bell rang for sleep, he rose and walked back to his room. His footsteps were quiet on the stone path. The pine trees whispered above him. Somewhere, a night bird called and was answered. This is enough. The fifth stage is a resting place on the path. After all the effort of catching and struggling, we are finally allowed to breathe. The practice that once felt like battle now feels like breathing. The mind that once seemed like an enemy has become a friend. We have arrived somewhere, and we can feel it in our bones. But this ease can be misunderstood. Some people reach this stage and believe the journey is over. They have found peace, so what more is there to do? They stop practicing, stop paying attention, and slowly, the old patterns return. The ox, left unattended, begins to wander again. The weeds grow back in the garden. Zen teaches that taming is not the same as liberation. We have made great progress, yes. We can sit in stillness, move through our days with presence, meet difficulties with patience. But we are still managing our experience. We are still the herder watching the ox. There is still a separation between who we think we are and what we truly are. We have found peace, but we have not yet discovered its source. The Buddha once compared the path to a raft used to cross a river. The raft is necessary. Without it, we cannot reach the other shore. But once we have crossed, we do not carry the raft on our heads for the rest of our lives. We set it down and walk on. The practices that bring us peace are precious, but eventually, even they must be released. Eventually, we must go beyond practice altogether. For now, in the fifth stage, we keep practicing. We hold the rope loosely. We enjoy the ease and the stillness and the growing sense of well-being. But we do not cling to these things. We know there is further to go. The ox is tame, but we have not yet become the ox. We have not yet discovered that there was never any separation at all. That discovery awaits in the stages ahead. But we do not need to rush toward it. We can walk slowly now. We can appreciate each step. We can notice the birds in the trees and the clouds crossing the sky and the simple miracle of being alive. The struggle has ended and something gentler has taken its place. Something that feels less like work and more like love. Pause for a moment before we continue together. The sixth stage of awakening is called riding the ox home. In the traditional picture, we see something wonderful. The seeker is no longer walking beside the ox, holding a rope, keeping watch. Instead, they are sitting on the ox's back, relaxed and at ease, playing a flute. The ox knows the way home. The seeker does not need to guide it anymore. They can simply enjoy the ride. This is the stage where practice and life become one. There is no longer a separation between sitting in meditation and going about our daily activities. The presence we cultivated on the cushion has spilled over into everything we do. Washing dishes, walking down a path, talking with a friend, all of it becomes practice. All of it becomes an expression of our awakened nature. In the earlier stages, we had to work hard to stay present. We had to catch ourselves when we wandered, bring ourselves back again and again, struggle against the pull of distraction and habit. Even when the ox became tame, we still held the rope. We still watched. We still maintained a certain vigilance. But now, in the sixth stage, we can let go. The ox has learned the way so thoroughly that it walks it without guidance. Our practice has become so natural that it continues on its own, like breathing, like the beating of our heart. We do not have to think about being present. We simply are present. We do not have to try to be awake. We are awake. Zen speaks of this as living from our original nature rather than from our conditioned habits. Our original nature is spontaneous, creative, free. It responds to each moment freshly, without the burden of past and future. When we live from this place, everything becomes lighter. Problems that once seemed heavy become manageable. Difficulties that once overwhelmed us become simply what is happening now, to be met and moved through. The Buddha described this quality of mind as ease, one of the factors of awakening. It is not the ease of laziness or avoidance, but the ease that comes from alignment. When we are aligned with our true nature, when we are no longer fighting against ourselves or against life, there is a natural relaxation. We can trust the ox to carry us. We can trust ourselves to respond appropriately to whatever arises. This trust is not blind faith. It has been earned through all the stages that came before. We have struggled with the wild ox. We have tamed it through patience and persistence. We have learned its ways, and it has learned ours. Now, finally, we can rest on its back and let it carry us home. But what does home mean in this context? In Zen, home is not a place we go to. It is a recognition of where we already are. Home is our true nature, the ground of our being, the stillness beneath all movement. We have always been home. We just did not know it. The whole journey of awakening is really a journey of recognition, of seeing what was always here, of coming back to what we never actually left. The sixth stage is when this recognition begins to stabilize. It is no longer just a glimpse or a peak experience. It is becoming our ordinary way of being. We wake up in the morning and we are home. We go about our day and we are home. We encounter difficulty and joy, loss and gain, and through all of it, we are home. The ox carries us there without us having to do anything at all. There is a Zen teaching that says, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The activities are the same. What changes is how we relate to them. Before, we chopped wood thinking about something else, distracted, disconnected from our actions. After, we chop wood completely, fully present, the chopping itself a kind of meditation. There is no gap between us and what we are doing. There is no wishing to be somewhere else. There is just this fully met, fully lived. In the sixth stage, this way of being is becoming natural. We do not have to remind ourselves to be present. Presence is simply how we are. We do not have to try to enjoy our lives. Enjoyment arises on its own when we stop resisting what is. The flute plays itself, and we are both the player and the music. 2 years had passed since Ren arrived at the Temple of Still Water. 2 years of sitting, sweeping, carrying water, learning to be still. 2 years of watching the seasons turn, the plum blossoms giving way to summer heat, the autumn leaves falling into the pond, the winter snow settling on the pine branches like white silence. He was not the same person who had climbed the mountain path that first day, lost and grieving, searching for something he could not name. That person seemed like a stranger now, someone Ren had once known but could no longer quite remember. The grief for his father had not disappeared, but it had transformed into something softer, something he could hold without being cut by it. The restlessness that had driven him from his village had quieted into a deep stillness that he carried with him wherever he went. One morning in late spring, Ren was working in the temple garden when he heard something unexpected. Music. The high, clear sound of a bamboo flute floating down from somewhere above the main hall. He set down his hoe and listened. The melody was simple but beautiful, rising and falling like breath, like water, like the wind through the pines. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, filling the garden with something that felt like joy. He followed the sound and found Master Sun sitting on a large flat rock at the edge of the temple grounds, playing a worn bamboo flute. The old monk's eyes were closed, his fingers moving over the holes with practiced ease. He seemed completely absorbed in the music, completely at peace. Ren sat down nearby and listened until the melody came to its natural end. Sun lowered the flute and opened his eyes. He did not seem surprised to see Ren there. "I did not know you played," Ren said. "There are many things you do not know about me," Sun said, but there was warmth in his voice, a hint of humor. "I do not play often, only when the morning feels right for it." It was beautiful. Sun looked at the flute in his hands, turning it over slowly. "My teacher gave me this many years ago. He said that when practice becomes natural, music arises on its own, not from effort, but from joy. He said I would understand someday." The old monk smiled. "It took me a long time to understand. And now? Now I play when I feel like playing. I do not think about why. The music wants to come out, so I let it come out. It is very simple." Ren considered this. He thought about his own practice, how it had changed over the months and years. In the beginning, sitting had been a battle. Then it had become a discipline, something he did because he knew he should. Then, slowly, it had become natural, like eating or sleeping. And now, more and more often, it felt like something else entirely. Not a duty, not even a practice. Just a way of being. Just how he moved through the world. "I think I am beginning to understand," he said. Sun nodded. "You have been here long enough now. I have watched you change. In the beginning, you were like a horse straining against its reins. Then you learned to walk calmly. Now," he paused, looking at Ren with those clear, kind eyes. "Now you are ready to ride." "What do you mean?" "The next stage of the path. You have tamed the ox. You have learned to work with your mind instead of against it. But you are still walking beside it, still holding the rope, even if loosely. The question now is whether you can let go completely, whether you can trust yourself enough to climb on its back and let it carry you. Ren sat with this for a moment. The morning sun was warm on his face. Birds sang in the trees above them. Somewhere in the temple, a bell rang softly, calling the monks to their morning tasks. "How do I do that?" he asked. Sun laughed, a rare sound, free and easy. "You do not do it. That is the whole point. You stop doing and let it happen. You stop trying to be present and simply be present. You stop practicing and become the practice." He held up the flute. "When I play, I do not think about playing. I do not tell my fingers where to go. The music happens through me, not because of me. This is what it means to ride the ox home. You are no longer the one in control. You are being carried by something larger than yourself, something you can trust." Ren looked out over the temple grounds, at the gardens and buildings he had come to know so well, at the mountains rising beyond them, at the vast blue sky above. He felt something stirring in his chest, a kind of expansion, a sense of possibility he had not felt since he was a child. "I am ready," he said quietly. "I know," said Sun. "That is why I am telling you." In the weeks that followed, something shifted in Ren's experience. It was subtle at first, easy to miss if he was not paying attention. But gradually it became unmistakable. The boundaries between practice and ordinary life began to dissolve. He would be washing dishes in the kitchen, his hands in the warm water, and he would realize that he was completely present, completely absorbed in the simple act of cleaning, not thinking about anything else, not wishing he was somewhere else, just washing, just water, just the feeling of ceramic beneath his fingers. He would be walking from one building to another, and he would notice the way his feet touched the ground, the way his body moved through space, the way the air felt against his skin. Each step was complete in itself. Each moment was enough. He began to feel a kind of joy that he had never experienced before. Not the joy of getting something he wanted, or of accomplishing something difficult. A quieter joy, without cause or object. It arose in the morning when he opened his eyes. It was there when he sat in meditation, when he worked in the garden, when he lay down to sleep at night. It did not depend on circumstances. It was simply there, like the sky, like the ground beneath his feet. One evening, Ren found an old bamboo flute in a storage room while looking for gardening tools. It was dusty and forgotten, probably left behind by some monk long ago. He cleaned it off and, on impulse, raised it to his lips. He did not know how to play. He had never learned music of any kind. But he blew gently across the hole, and a note came out, pure and clear. He moved his fingers randomly over the holes, and more notes followed, not a melody exactly, but something, a sound, an expression. He laughed at himself, at the strange squeaks and warbles he was producing. But he kept playing. Night after night, after his duties were done, he would take the flute to a quiet corner of the temple grounds and experiment, not trying to learn proper technique, not trying to play any particular song, just making sounds, letting them come, seeing what wanted to emerge. Slowly, very slowly, the sounds began to organize themselves. Simple melodies arose, unpracticed and imperfect, but genuine. Music that came from somewhere he could not name. One night, Master Sun found him playing by the pond, the water reflecting the stars, the fish long since gone to sleep beneath the surface. The old monk listened in silence until Ren noticed him and stopped, embarrassed. "Do not stop on my account," Sun said. It was good. Rough, but good. The roughness will smooth itself in time. What matters is that the music is real. It comes from here. He touched his chest. Not from here. He touched his head. "I do not know what I am doing," Ren admitted. "That is the best way to do anything," Sun said. "When you do not know what you are doing, you cannot do it wrong. You can only do it honestly." He sat down beside Ren on the grass. For a while, neither of them spoke. They just sat together in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the night, the insects and frogs, the soft wind in the pines. "You will leave soon," Sun said finally. It was not a question. Ren was surprised, then realized he was not surprised at all. He had known it for some time, without admitting it to himself. He had come to the temple searching for something, and he had found it. Not an answer exactly, but something better. A way of being. A peace that did not depend on circumstances. He had learned what he needed to learn. Now it was time to take it back into the world. "Yes," he said. "I think so. Not today, but soon." "Good," Sun said. "The temple is not meant to be a hiding place. It is a training ground. We learn here so we can live out there." He gestured toward the darkness beyond the temple walls, toward the mountains, the valleys, the world of ordinary life that Ren had left behind 2 years ago. "I am afraid," Ren said. "Not of leaving, of forgetting, of losing what I have found." Sun shook his head slowly. "You cannot lose it. It is not something you have. It is something you are. Wherever you go, it goes with you. Whatever you do, it does it through you. The ox knows the way home now. You do not have to guide it. You just have to trust it." Ren looked up at the stars, scattered across the darkness like seeds waiting to grow. He thought about his mother, alone in the village, growing older. He thought about the farm, the fields his father had worked, the land that held his family's history. He thought about all the people he had never met, all the lives he had never touched, all the world he had not yet seen. He raised the flute to his lips and began to play. The melody was simple, imperfect, but it was his. It rose into the night sky like a promise, like a prayer, like a song for everyone who was searching for the way home. The 6th stage reminds us that awakening is not meant to be kept in a temple or a meditation hall. It is meant to be lived. The whole point of practice is to transform how we move through the world, how we relate to ourselves and others, how we meet each moment of this brief and precious life. When we ride the ox home, we are bringing everything we have learned back into ordinary life. The stillness we found in sitting, we bring to our conversations. The patience we developed in practice, we bring to our difficulties. The joy that arose from presence, we bring to our work, our relationships, our simple daily tasks. This is not always easy. The world outside the temple is noisy and demanding. There are pressures and distractions that we did not face in the sheltered environment of practice. But the ox knows the way. If we have done the work of the earlier stages, if we have truly tamed our mind and befriended our true nature, then we can trust it to carry us through whatever arises. There is a teaching in Zen about the difference between a practitioner and a master. The practitioner has to try to be present. The master is simply present. The practitioner has to remind themselves to be compassionate. The master is simply compassionate. The shift from trying to being is what happens in the sixth stage. We stop playing the role of an awakened person and simply become one. This does not mean we are finished. There are still stages ahead, deeper recognitions, more complete surrenders, but something fundamental has changed. We are no longer seeking. We are no longer struggling. We are riding home on the back of our own true nature, playing the song of our own awakened heart, trusting the path to unfold beneath us. If you have reached this stage, take a moment to appreciate what has happened. You have traveled far. You have faced your own wild mind and made peace with it. You have found a joy that does not depend on circumstances. You have discovered that home is not somewhere you go, but something you are. Pause for a moment before we continue together into the deeper stages of this endless, beautiful path. The seventh stage of awakening is called the ox transcended. In the traditional picture, something has changed dramatically. The ox is gone. We see only the seeker, sitting peacefully outside a small hut, gazing at the moon. The rope that once bound them to the ox has been set aside. The struggle is over. The journey home is complete. But wait, if the ox represents our true nature, how can it disappear? If we have spent all this time searching for it, catching it, taming it, riding it home, why would we now let it go? This is one of the deepest teachings of the Zen path. The ox was never separate from us. It was a way of pointing to something that cannot be pointed to directly. We needed the image of the ox to give us something to seek, something to catch, something to ride. But now we have arrived home, and we see the truth. There was never an ox apart from ourselves. There was never a true nature separate from who we are. The seeker and the sought were always one. The Buddha taught that all beings possess Buddha nature. This nature is not something we develop or achieve. It is what we already are, beneath all our confusion and grasping. The entire path of awakening is really a path of uncovering, of removing the layers of delusion that hide our original face. And when those layers are finally removed, we discover that there is nothing to attain because we already have everything we need. We already are everything we were seeking. This is a difficult teaching to understand with the mind. The mind wants to grasp something, to hold onto an achievement, to say, I have found it. I have arrived. But the seventh stage asks us to let go of even this. It asks us to release our attachment to the ox itself. to the very idea of enlightenment as something we possess. There is a famous Zen story about a monk who practiced diligently for many years. One day, he went to his teacher and announced that he had finally attained enlightenment. The teacher looked at him calmly and said, "Good. Now throw it away." The monk was shocked. Why would he throw away what he had worked so hard to achieve? But the teacher knew something the monk had not yet understood. As long as we hold on to enlightenment as a possession, as long as we think of ourselves as enlightened people, we are still caught in delusion. True freedom means letting go of everything, even our spiritual achievements. This is what happens in the 7th stage. We set down the rope. We stop thinking of ourselves as someone who has tamed the ox. We stop identifying with the role of spiritual seeker or practitioner. All of these identities, as useful as they were on the path, are now seen as just more layers to be released. What remains when everything is released? Just this. Just here. Just the person sitting outside the hut, watching the moon rise, needing nothing, seeking nothing, complete. The Buddha spoke of this as the end of clinging. He identified clinging as the root cause of suffering, not just clinging to pleasures and possessions, but clinging to views, to practices, to the sense of self. Even clinging to the Dharma, to the teachings themselves, must eventually be released. The teachings are like a finger pointing at the moon. Once we have seen the moon, we no longer need to stare at the finger. In this stage, we come to understand that the practices that brought us here were skillful means, useful tools for a particular purpose. Sitting meditation, mindfulness, working with a teacher, all of these were necessary. They were the raft that carried us across the river. But now we have reached the other shore, and we can set the raft down. We do not need to carry it with us anymore. This does not mean we stop practicing. Many people in the 7th stage continue to sit, continue to study, continue to engage with the Dharma. But the relationship to practice has changed. We no longer practice to get somewhere. We no longer practice to improve ourselves or to achieve enlightenment. We practice because practice is simply what we do. It is our natural expression, like breathing, like sleeping, like the moon rising over the mountains. The image of the moon is significant in Zen. The moon represents our true nature, always present, always luminous, even when hidden by clouds. We do not create the moon. We do not achieve it. We simply see it, clear and bright, shining in the empty sky. In the 7th stage, we sit beneath the moon and recognize it as our own original face. The face we had before our parents were born, before the world came into being. The face that was never separate from anything, that includes everything, that is both empty and full. Zen master Huang Po taught that the Buddha mind is not different from the ordinary mind. There is no special enlightened state that is separate from our everyday experience. When we let go of the ox, we discover that ordinary life is the path. Washing dishes is the path. Walking down the street is the path. Talking with a friend, eating a meal, watching the sunset, all of it is the path. There is nowhere to go and nothing to attain because we are already here, already home, already complete. This realization brings a profound peace. Not the peace of having achieved something, but the peace of no longer needing to achieve anything. Not the peace of having found the ox, but the peace of knowing there was never any ox to find. The struggle is over, not because we have won, but because we have seen through the illusion that there was ever a battle. Ren left the Temple of Still Water on a morning in early autumn, when the first cool winds were beginning to blow down from the mountains. He had said his goodbyes the night before. Master Sun had given him a small bundle of rice and vegetables for the journey, along with the old bamboo flute he had found in the storage room. "It has found its player," Sun had said. "Take it with you." They had bowed to each other in the dim light of the meditation hall, teacher and student, two people who had walked a path together and now would walk apart. Ren did not feel sad as he descended the mountain path. He did not feel happy either. He felt clear, like the sky after a storm has passed, like water that has settled and become still. The temple had been his home for 2 years, but he understood now that home was not a place. Home was something he carried within him, something that could not be left behind. The path down was easier than the path up had been. He remembered climbing this same trail 2 years ago, exhausted and confused, searching for something he could not name. He had been so lost then, so hungry for answers. Now he walked with ease, his feet finding the stones and roots without effort, his body moving through the forest like it belonged there. He reached the village of stone bridges by midday and stopped at the same inn where he had stayed on his way up. The innkeeper recognized him and smiled broadly. "The young seeker returns," the man said, wiping his hands on his apron. "You look different. More settled. Less like a man running from something. Did you find what you were looking for up there in the mountains?" Ren considered the question. It was not easy to answer. He had found something, yes, but it was not what he had expected. He had expected to find an answer, a truth, a state of being that would solve all his problems and make him whole. Instead, he had found something simpler and stranger. He had found that there was nothing to find. He had found that he had always been complete. He had found that the searching itself had been the only thing standing between him and peace. "I found that I was not lost," Ren said finally. The innkeeper laughed, not understanding but not needing to. "Well, you look well fed at least. The temple must have good cooks. Better than my wife, if I am honest." Ren smiled and ordered a bowl of noodles. He ate slowly, tasting each bite, noticing the texture of the noodles, the warmth of the broth, the subtle flavors of ginger and onion. He watched the people move through the inn, merchants and travelers, farmers coming in from their fields, a young mother with a child on her hip. Everyone going somewhere, doing something, caught up in the business of their lives. He felt a quiet compassion for all of them, for the way they hurried and worried, for the way they chased after happiness without realizing it was already here, waiting to be noticed. After eating, he continued on his way. The road wound down through forests and fields, past villages and farms, through landscapes that were both familiar and new. He had walked this road before, but he had not really seen it. He had been too caught up in his thoughts, too focused on where he was going. Now he saw the red of the autumn leaves, the grey of the stones, the blue of the sky, vast and empty, holding everything. He walked for several days, sleeping under trees when the weather was mild, staying at small inns when it rained. He did not hurry. He did not have a schedule to keep. Each step was complete in itself. Each moment was enough. One evening, as he sat by a small stream, watching the water flow over the rocks, he thought about the ox. For so long, he had been focused on catching it, taming it, riding it home. It had been his constant companion, his project, his purpose. The ox had given shape to his journey, something to aim for, something to measure his progress against. But now, sitting by this stream, with the evening light turning golden on the water, he realized he had not thought about the ox in days. It had slipped away without him noticing, like a dream fading upon waking, like mist burning off in the morning sun. Where had it gone? He looked around, half expecting to see it standing in the shadows beneath the trees, watching him with those calm eyes. But there was nothing. Just the stream flowing endlessly over the rocks. Just the trees with their leaves beginning to turn. Just the darkening sky and the first stars beginning to appear, one by one, like old friends arriving for a gathering. And then he understood. The ox had not gone anywhere. It had never been separate from him. It was the stream, this very stream, flowing without effort, without destination. It was the trees, standing patient and still, their roots drinking deep from the earth. It was the sky and the stars and the cool evening air filling his lungs. It was his own breath, rising and falling without his having to do anything. It was his own heartbeat, steady and faithful, marking the rhythm of his life. It was his own awareness, watching itself, knowing itself, needing nothing outside itself to be complete. He laughed out loud, startling a bird from a nearby bush. The bird flew up into the darkening sky, and Wren watched it go, still laughing. All that searching, all that effort, and the whole time he had been sitting in the middle of what he was looking for. He took out his flute and began to play. The melody that arose was simple and unhurried, matching the flow of the stream, the rustle of the leaves, the rhythm of the evening. He was not trying to play anything in particular. He was just letting the music come, letting it express something that could not be put into words. As he played, he felt a deep gratitude arise. Gratitude for the path that had brought him here. Gratitude for his father, whose death had set him on this journey. Gratitude for his mother, waiting for him in the village, not knowing that her son was on his way home. He played until the stars filled the sky, until the stream was just a sound in the darkness, until the music faded into silence. Then he put the flute away and lay down on the soft grass, looking up at the vast expanse above him. There was nothing to achieve, nothing to become, nothing to hold on to. Just this, just here, just the stars and the stream and the cool grass beneath his back. He closed his eyes and slept deeply and peacefully, without dreams. The next morning, he woke with the sun and continued on his way. The road was beginning to look familiar now. He recognized the shape of certain hills, the curve of certain rivers. He was getting close to home, but the word home no longer meant what it once did. It was not just a village, a farm, a place where his mother waited. It was something vaster and simpler. It was the ground beneath his feet, wherever he stood. It was the sky above his head, wherever he walked. It was the present moment, fully lived, fully met, complete in itself. He thought about what he would say to his mother. How could he explain what had happened to him? How could he describe the journey he had taken, the ox he had caught and tamed and finally released? He did not have words for it. Perhaps he would not need words. Perhaps just being with her, present and clear, would be enough. As he walked, he noticed he was no longer thinking about the future. He was not planning what he would do when he arrived, not rehearsing conversations, not worrying about how things would go. He was simply walking. One step, then another. The road unfolding beneath him, the world unfolding around him, everything arising and passing away in its own time. This was freedom, he realized. Not freedom from anything, but freedom to be fully here, fully alive, without the burden of past and future. The ox was gone, and with it, all the weight he had been carrying. All the seeking, all the striving, all the desperate need to become something other than what he was. He was just Ren, just a man walking down a road in autumn, carrying a small bundle and a bamboo flute, going home to see his mother. Nothing special, nothing extraordinary. And yet, somehow, that was the most extraordinary thing of all. The seventh stage brings us to a place that cannot be described, only lived. We have followed the path through all its twists and turns, through struggle and surrender, through effort and ease. And now we arrive at something that was never separate from where we started. The journey, we discover, was always a journey home to ourselves. The Buddha, in his final teaching before passing away, told his students to be a lamp unto themselves, not to rely on external authorities, not to cling to doctrines or teachers, or even to his own words, but to trust their own direct experience of reality. This is what the seventh stage asks of us. We let go of everything we have learned, not because it was wrong, but because we no longer need it in the same way. We have internalized the teachings so completely that they have become invisible, like the air we breathe, like the ground we walk on. Zen master Linji said, "If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him." This shocking statement points to the same truth. As long as we are looking for the Buddha outside ourselves, as long as we think enlightenment is something possessed by special people in special places, we are missing the point. The Buddha is not someone to meet. The Buddha is what we are when we stop pretending to be something else. The ox is not something to catch. The ox is what has always been here, hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to stop searching long enough to see it. There is a teaching in the Prajnaparamita Sutras that says, form is emptiness and emptiness is form. For a long time on the path, we learn to see through form, to recognize that things are not as solid and separate as they appear. But in this stage, we complete the circle. We see that emptiness is not somewhere else, not a special state apart from ordinary life. Emptiness is right here, in this cup of tea, in this conversation, in this breath. The sacred is not separate from the ordinary. It is the ordinary seen clearly. In this stage, we discover a peace that does not depend on anything. Not on our practice, not on our understanding, not on our circumstances. It is the peace of simply being, without conditions, without requirements. We sit outside our hut and watch the moon rise over the mountains, and we need nothing more. The moon is enough. The sky is enough. This moment, just as it is, with all its imperfections and uncertainties, is enough. This is not the end of the path. There are still stages ahead, still deeper realizations, still ways in which life will continue to unfold and teach us. But something fundamental has been resolved. The great search is over. Not because we found what we were looking for, but because we found that we were never really lost. We were always home. We just did not know it. Rest here for a moment. Feel what it is like to need nothing. Feel what it is like to be complete, just as you are, in this moment, with things exactly as they are. There is nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to achieve, nothing you need to become. You are already what you have always been seeking. The ox is gone, and everything remains. Pause for a moment before we continue together. The 8th stage of awakening is called both self and ox transcended. In the traditional picture, there is nothing to see. Just an empty circle. No ox, no seeker, no hut, no moon. The image that has guided us through 7 stages of the path has finally dissolved into pure emptiness. This is the most radical stage of awakening. In the 7th stage, the ox disappeared, and we discovered that it had never been separate from us. But there was still someone there to make this discovery. There was still a person sitting outside the hut, watching the moon, enjoying the peace of having arrived home. Now, even this disappears. The one who transcended the ox is also transcended. The seeker and the sought both dissolve into something that cannot be pictured or named. In Buddhism, this is called sunyata, often translated as emptiness. But emptiness does not mean nothingness. It does not mean that things do not exist or that life is meaningless. Rather, it points to the true nature of all things, which is that they have no fixed, separate, independent existence. Everything arises in dependence on everything else. Nothing stands alone. When we look deeply into any phenomenon, we find that it is empty of a separate self, empty of boundaries, empty of the solidity we usually attribute to it. This is not a loss. It is the discovery of something far more wondrous than solidity could ever be. The Buddha taught that this emptiness is not something to be feared. It is actually the source of all freedom. As long as we believe in solid, separate things, including a solid, separate self, we are trapped. We grasp at what we want and push away what we do not want. We build walls around ourselves and defend them fiercely against the world. But when we see through the illusion of separateness, the walls come down. We discover that we were never separate from anything. The universe is not something we live in. It is something we are. The self we spent so much energy defending was never really there in the first place, at least not in the way we imagined. This can sound frightening to the mind. If there is no self, who am I? If everything is empty, what is the point of anything? But these questions arise from misunderstanding. Emptiness does not negate our experience. It liberates it. We still eat breakfast, still talk with friends, still feel joy and sorrow, still love and grieve and hope. but we hold it all more lightly. We are no longer fighting to protect a self that does not exist. We are no longer struggling to make permanent what is inherently impermanent. We can finally relax into the flow of things as they are. The great Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna dedicated his life to exploring the nature of emptiness. He showed that emptiness itself is empty. We cannot make a thing out of it, cannot cling to it, cannot use it as a new foundation for the self. Even the concept of emptiness must be released. This is what the 8th stage points to. Not just the emptiness of the ox, not just the emptiness of the seeker, but the emptiness of emptiness itself. Zen expresses this through the image of the empty circle, called an enso in Japanese. The enso is one of the most profound symbols in Zen art. It is usually drawn with a single brushstroke, in one continuous movement, expressing the totality of existence in the simplest possible form. The circle has no beginning and no end. It includes everything and excludes nothing. It is both perfectly full and perfectly empty. When we look at the enso, we might be tempted to see it as a picture of nothing, but that would be a mistake. The empty circle is not nothing. It is the ground from which everything arises. It is the silence from which all sounds emerge. It is the space that allows all forms to exist. Without emptiness, there could be no fullness. Without the empty circle, there could be no ox, no seeker, no path, no awakening. The Buddha pointed to this when he taught about dependent origination. Nothing exists independently. Everything arises in relationship to everything else. A flower exists because of the sun, the rain, the soil, the seed, the gardener, and countless other conditions. Take away any of these, and there is no flower. The flower is empty of a separate self because it is made entirely of non-flower elements. And yet the flower is undeniably here, beautiful and fragrant, expressing the whole universe in its brief blooming. We are like that flower. We think we are separate selves, bounded by our skin, distinct from everything around us. But when we look closely, we cannot find where we end and the world begins. We are made of our parents, our food, our air, our experiences, our relationships, our thoughts and feelings that arise from conditions we did not create. We are empty of a separate self, and yet we are undeniably here, alive and aware, expressing the whole universe in our brief appearing. In the 8th stage, this truth is not just understood intellectually, it is realized directly, in the bones and the breath and the blood. The sense of being a separate self dissolves, not into nothing, but into everything. We do not disappear. We expand. The boundaries that seemed so solid become transparent, and we discover that we have always been the whole of it, the empty circle that includes all things. This is not a state that can be maintained by effort. It is not an achievement to be proud of. It arises when everything else falls away, when we stop trying to be someone or something, when we finally let go completely. And when it arises, there is no one there to notice it. There is only the arising itself, the pure happening of this moment, without a witness, without a center, without a self to claim it. Ren came home on an afternoon in late autumn. The village looked the same as it always had. The same houses with their thatched roofs, the same narrow lanes between the fields, the same mountains rising in the distance. Children played in the dust near the well. An old man sat on a bench outside his door, watching the world go by. Smoke rose from cooking fires, carrying the smell of rice and vegetables. And yet everything was different. Not the village, but the one seeing it. Ren walked through the familiar streets and felt as though he was seeing them for the first time. Not because they had changed, but because he had. Or rather, because the one who had left 2 years ago no longer existed. Someone else was walking these lanes now. Or perhaps no one at all. He found his mother in the garden behind their house, pulling weeds from between the rows of vegetables. She was older than he remembered, her hair grayer, her movements slower. But when she looked up and saw him standing at the gate, her face opened into a smile that erased all the years between them. "Ren," she said. Just his name. Nothing else was needed. He walked to her and they embraced. She smelled of earth and cooking smoke, the smell of his childhood, the smell of home. He held her for a long time, feeling her small body in his arms, feeling the years of separation dissolve into this single moment of reunion. "You have come back," she said when they finally stepped apart. "I have come back," he agreed. She looked at him closely, the way she used to look at him when he was a boy and had done something she did not quite understand. "You are different," she said. "Something has changed in you. I can see it in your eyes." Ren did not know what to say. How could he explain what had happened? How could he put into words the journey he had taken, the ox he had sought and found and lost, the self that had dissolved somewhere on the road between the temple and here? "I went looking for something," he said finally. "And I found it. Or maybe I found that there was nothing to find. I am not sure I can explain it." His mother nodded slowly. She did not ask for more explanation. Perhaps she understood that some things cannot be explained, only lived. Perhaps she had her own wisdom, gathered over decades of planting and harvesting, of watching things grow and die and grow again. "Come inside," she said. "You must be hungry. I will make you something to eat." They walked into the house together. It was smaller than Ren remembered and darker, but it felt right. It felt like exactly where he was supposed to be. He sat at the low table where he had eaten thousands of meals as a child and watched his mother move around the kitchen, preparing rice and vegetables, heating water for tea. "I thought about you every day," she said without turning around. "I wondered where you were, what you were doing, if you were safe, if you were happy." "I thought about you too," Ren said. "I wanted to come back sooner, but I was not ready." "And now you are ready?" Ren considered the question. Was he ready? He did not feel ready for anything in particular. He did not feel like he had completed something or achieved something. He just felt empty, in the best possible way. Empty of striving, empty of seeking, empty of the need to be anywhere other than where he was. "I do not know if ready is the right word," he said. "I just knew it was time." His mother brought the food to the table and sat across from him. They ate in silence for a while, the comfortable silence of two people who do not need to fill the space with words. Outside, the afternoon light was fading, turning golden, then orange, then grey. "Your father would be proud of you," she said eventually. Ren felt something move in his chest, a wave of emotion that rose and fell like breath. His father. He had not thought about him directly in a long time, but he realized now that his father had been with him the whole journey. The walking stick he still carried, the grief that had set him on the path, the love that had never disappeared, only transformed. "I miss him," Ren said. "I miss him too. Every day. Every morning when I wake up and reach across the bed and he is not there. Every evening when I cook dinner for one instead of two." His mother's eyes were bright with tears, but she was smiling through them, a smile that held both sorrow and something else, something like peace. "But he is not gone. Not really. I see him in the fields he worked, in the way the rows are still straight because he taught me how to plant them, in the tools he used, worn smooth by his hands. In you, when you walk a certain way or laugh at something unexpected. He is still here, just not in the way he used to be." Ren understood what she meant. Not as a concept or a comforting thought, but as a living truth he could feel in his body. His father was empty of a separate self, just like everything else. He had never been a solid, bounded thing that could simply disappear. He was a process, a pattern, a way that the universe had expressed itself for a time. And that expression continued, rippling outward like waves from a stone dropped in still water, in the land he had tended, in the son he had raised, in the memories that lived on in those who loved him, in ways that could never be fully traced or known. "Nothing really disappears," Ren said quietly. "It just changes form." His mother looked at him with something like wonder. "That is what I believe too," she said. "I did not know you had learned such things in the mountains." After dinner, Ren walked outside and stood in the garden where his mother had been working. The stars were coming out, the same stars he had watched from the temple, from the roadside, from 1,000 different places on his journey. The same stars his father had looked up at, and his father's father, and all the ancestors stretching back into the darkness of time. He thought about the empty circle, the image that represented this stage of the path. No ox, no seeker, no self. Just this. Just the stars and the garden and the cool evening air. Just the awareness that was not his awareness, because there was no him to possess it. Just the universe looking at itself through these eyes, marveling at its own existence, astonished at its own beauty. He did not feel special. He did not feel enlightened. He did not feel like someone who had achieved something remarkable. Those feelings would have required a someone to feel them, and that someone had grown very quiet, very transparent, almost invisible. He just felt empty, wonderfully, peacefully, completely empty. And in that emptiness, everything was present. His mother in the house behind him, washing the dishes from their dinner. His father in the soil beneath his feet, in the vegetables they had eaten, in the love that continued to flow between mother and son. The temple in the mountains, the monks sitting in meditation as the night deepened. Master-son, probably watching these same stars rise over the pine trees. All of it here, all of it now, all of it one seamless whole without edges or boundaries. He took out his flute and raised it to his lips. But he did not play. He just held it there, feeling the smooth bamboo against his fingers, feeling the night air on his face, feeling the emptiness that was not empty at all. There was nothing to express, nothing to add to this moment. It was already complete. He lowered the flute and simply stood there, breathing, being, disappearing into the vast silence that held everything. The eighth stage is sometimes called the Great Death in Zen. It is the death of the self, the final letting go of the illusion that we are separate beings moving through a separate world. This death is not sad or frightening when it is actually experienced. It is a relief, like setting down a heavy weight we did not know we were carrying. It is the laying down of a burden we have carried our whole lives without knowing we were carrying it. The Buddha taught that clinging to a sense of self is the root of all suffering. We spend our lives defending this self, promoting it, comparing it to others, worrying about its fate. We lie awake at night wondering if we are good enough, successful enough, loved enough. We fight to protect our reputation, our possessions, our sense of being someone special. And all this effort is based on a misunderstanding. The self we are defending does not exist in the way we think it does. It is a story we tell ourselves, a collection of memories and habits and beliefs that we mistake for a solid, continuous thing. When this is seen clearly, not just understood but seen with the whole of one's being, the self becomes transparent. We can still function in the world. We still have a name, a history, a personality. People still recognize us on the street and call us by our names. But we no longer take it so seriously. We no longer believe it is the whole truth of who we are. We have seen the empty circle, and we know that we are that emptiness, expressing itself temporarily as this particular form, this brief dance of atoms and awareness. This is not a state to achieve or a place to arrive. It is the ground that was always beneath our feet, the sky that was always above our heads. We recognize that we have always been empty, and that this emptiness is the source of everything, the womb of the universe, the mother of all forms. The empty circle holds everything. Your joys and sorrows, your seeking and finding, your life and death, all of it arising from emptiness, dancing for a while in the light of awareness, returning to emptiness when its time is done. Nothing is lost. Nothing is gained. Everything is exactly as it has always been, perfect and complete, needing nothing added, nothing taken away. Rest here in the empty circle. Let yourself dissolve into what you have always been. There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to hold on to. There is only this, vast and silent and infinitely full. The empty circle that is also the fullest thing in the universe. Pause for a moment before we continue together into the final stages of this pathless path. The ninth stage of awakening is called reaching the source. In the traditional picture, we see something surprising. After the empty circle of the eighth stage, where everything disappeared into pure emptiness, now the world returns. We see a simple scene from nature, a river flowing, flowers blooming, trees standing in their ordinary beauty. No person, no ox, no seeker. Just the world as it is, fresh and vivid and completely itself. This stage reveals one of the deepest truths of the Buddhist path. The source we have been seeking is not somewhere else. It is not hidden behind the world or above it or beyond it. The source is right here, in the ordinary unfolding of things as they are. The river flowing is the source. The flowers blooming are the source. This moment, exactly as it is, with nothing added and nothing taken away, is the source. In the earlier stages of the path, we learn to see through the illusion of solid, separate things. We discovered emptiness, the vast openness that underlies all phenomena. This was a crucial insight, a necessary step on the journey. But if we stop there, if we cling to emptiness as the final truth, we have not yet completed the path. The Buddha's teaching is not that the world is empty and therefore unreal. It is that the world is empty and therefore miraculous. Because things have no fixed, separate essence, they can arise at all. Because everything is interconnected, everything is possible. Emptiness is not the negation of form. It is the womb from which all forms are born. The great Buddhist text, called the Heart Sutra, puts it simply: form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. In the 8th stage, we realized the first part of this teaching. We saw that form is emptiness, that all things are without inherent existence, that even the self we took to be so solid is transparent and groundless. This was the great death, the dissolution of the seeker into the vast empty circle. But now, in the 9th stage, we realize the second part. Emptiness is form. The void is not void. It is full, overflowing, bursting with life. The source we sought is pouring itself out in every direction, becoming rivers and mountains and clouds and people, becoming this very moment in all its ordinary wonder. There is a famous Zen saying about the stages of practice. Before I studied Zen, mountains were mountains and rivers were rivers. While I was studying Zen, mountains were no longer mountains and rivers were no longer rivers. But after I had studied Zen for many years, mountains were once again mountains and rivers were once again rivers. This saying captures the journey we have been on. In the beginning, we took the world at face value. Mountains were just mountains, solid and obvious. Then we began to see through them. We discovered their emptiness, their lack of inherent existence. Mountains became strange, transparent, almost dreamlike. But now, having passed through emptiness, we return to the ordinary. Mountains are mountains again. But this is not the same as the beginning. Now we see them with new eyes. We see them as the expression of the source, as emptiness taking form, as the sacred showing up as the ordinary. The Zen master, who spoke those words about mountains and rivers, was pointing to something that cannot quite be put into language. The third seeing is not the same as the first seeing, even though they look identical from the outside. The first seeing was naive, unconscious, taking things for granted. The third seeing is awake. It knows that mountains are empty, and precisely because of this, it can appreciate them fully. It knows that rivers are without inherent existence, and precisely because of this, it can marvel at their flowing. In this stage, we stop seeking altogether. Not because we have given up, but because we have found what we were looking for. Or rather, we have discovered that what we were looking for was never lost. It was here all along, hiding in plain sight, showing itself in every breath, every bird song, every falling leaf. We were searching for the source while standing in the middle of it. We were asking where home is while sitting in our own living room. The Buddha, after his enlightenment, was asked what he had attained. He replied that he had attained nothing at all. This seems like a strange answer from someone who had just achieved the highest goal of the spiritual path. But it is the truest answer he could give. There is nothing to attain because the source is already here. There is nothing to become because we already are what we seek. The whole journey of awakening is really a journey of recognition, of seeing what was always present, of waking up to the miracle of ordinary existence. This is why the ninth stage shows us a scene from nature rather than a spiritual symbol or a meditating figure. The river does not need to practice meditation. The flowers do not need to attain enlightenment. They are already expressing the source perfectly, just by being what they are. They do not question their existence or wonder if they are doing it right. They simply flow, simply bloom, simply are. And so are we, if we could only see it. Our very confusion is the source. Our seeking is the source. Even our suffering, even our mistakes, even our darkest moments are the source taking form, the emptiness expressing itself in yet another way. This does not mean that the path was unnecessary. We needed to make the journey. We needed to search and struggle and surrender. We needed to catch the ox and tame it and ride it home and let it go. Without the journey, we would not have the eyes to see what was here all along. A person who has never left home does not know what home means. A person who has never been lost cannot understand the joy of being found. The journey gives us the capacity to appreciate what was always present. The poet T.S. Eliot wrote that the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. This is what happens in the ninth stage. We arrive where we started. We see the ordinary world we have always lived in, the same world we tried so hard to escape or transcend. But now we know it. Now we recognize it as the source itself, endlessly expressing itself, endlessly offering itself, endlessly being born in each moment. There is a story about a Zen master who was asked what he did before enlightenment. He said, "I chopped wood and carried water." "And what do you do after enlightenment?" "I chop wood and carry water." The student was confused. "Then what is the difference?" The master smiled. "Before enlightenment, I chopped wood while thinking about something else. After enlightenment, I just chop wood. This is the simplicity of the ninth stage. We are no longer somewhere else in our minds. We are no longer waiting for life to begin or hoping for something better to arrive. We are here, fully here, and we discover that here is exactly where we always wanted to be. The days settled into a quiet rhythm. Ren woke each morning before dawn, as he had at the temple. He would sit in the small room that had been his as a child, watching the darkness slowly give way to grey, then to the soft colors of sunrise. He did not call it meditation anymore. He did not call it anything. He just sat, breathing, being present to whatever arose. Then he would go outside and work. There was much to do. The farm had suffered during the years of his absence. His mother had done her best, but she was not as strong as she once was, and some fields had gone untended. Weeds had grown up between the rows. Fences had fallen into disrepair. The irrigation channels were clogged with debris. Ren threw himself into the work, not with the desperate energy of someone trying to escape himself, as he might have done in the past. With a quiet joy, he cleared the weeds and felt the soil in his hands. He repaired the fences and felt the wood smooth under his palms. He dug out the irrigation channels and watched the water begin to flow again, clear and cold from the mountain springs. His mother watched him with wonder. "You work differently than you used to," she said one evening as they sat together after dinner. "You seem to enjoy it more." Ren considered this. "I used to think work was something to get through," he said. "A means to an end. Now it just seems like life. No different from eating or sleeping or sitting in the morning." "Your father was like that," she said. "Toward the end especially. He would spend hours in the fields and come home tired but happy. I asked him once what he thought about while he worked. He said he did not think about anything. He just worked." Ren smiled. He understood now what his father had discovered, perhaps without ever naming it. The source was not somewhere else. It was here, in the work itself, in the soil and the water and the growing things. You did not need to go to a temple to find it. You did not need to sit in meditation for hours. You just needed to be present, fully present, to whatever was in front of you. The seasons turned. Autumn gave way to winter, the fields going dormant under blankets of frost. Ren and his mother spent the cold months repairing tools, mending clothes, telling stories by the fire. She told him about his father as a young man, how they had met, how he had courted her with wildflowers and clumsy poems. Ren told her about the temple, about Master Sun, about the long hours of sitting and the breakthrough that had finally come. She listened without judgment, without trying to understand everything. "It sounds like you found what you needed," she said simply. "I found that there was nothing to find," Ren said. "Which sounds like a riddle, I know. But it is the truest thing I can say." His mother nodded slowly. "Your father used to say something similar. He said the meaning of life was not something you could figure out. It was something you had to live. Every day, every moment. That was the meaning. Spring came, and with it the planting season. Ren worked alongside his mother, and sometimes neighbors came to help. Word had spread that the widow's son had returned from the mountains, and people were curious. Some asked him directly what he had learned at the temple. He found it difficult to answer in a way that made sense to them, so he usually just smiled and said he had learned to pay attention. The village had changed in small ways while he was gone. Some elders had passed away, their houses now occupied by their children and grandchildren. Some young people had married and started families, their babies crying in the night, their laughter ringing through the lanes during the day. The old temple at the edge of the village had been repaired, its roof newly thatched, its bell polished until it shone. But the rhythms of life continued, the same rhythms that had shaped this valley for generations beyond counting. Planting in spring, tending in summer, harvesting in autumn, resting in winter. Birth and death, joy and sorrow, the endless turning of the wheel. One afternoon, while taking a break from planting, Ren walked to the edge of the fields and looked out at the mountains in the distance. They were the same mountains he had crossed to reach the temple, the same mountains he had gazed at as a restless young man, longing for something he could not name. He remembered standing in almost this exact spot years ago, feeling like his life was incomplete, like the answer to all his questions was waiting somewhere on the other side of those blue peaks. They looked different now, not because they had changed, but because he had. Before, the mountains had seemed like a barrier, something to be crossed in order to reach somewhere better. Now they just looked like mountains, beautiful in their own right. Part of the landscape he called home. He realized he had stopped dividing the world into sacred and ordinary. The temple had been a sacred place, yes, but so was this field. So was his mother's kitchen. So was the path where children played and old men sat in the sun. Every place was the source, expressing itself in its own way. Every moment was an invitation to wake up. A butterfly landed on a nearby flower, its wings opening and closing slowly. Ren watched it without thinking anything in particular. Just watching. Just being present to this small miracle of color and movement. The butterfly flew away, and Ren returned to work. That evening, as the sun set over the mountains, Ren took out his flute and played. He sat on a low wall at the edge of the garden, and the melody that emerged was different from what he had played before. Simpler, closer to silence. It followed the rhythm of his breath, the rhythm of the fading light, the rhythm of the evening settling over the valley. His mother came out and listened for a while. When he finished, she said nothing. She just stood there, looking at the mountains, looking at the sky, looking at her son who had gone away and come back changed. "The flowers are blooming early this year," she said finally. "Yes," Ren said. "They are beautiful. Your father planted those. The ones by the fence. He said they would come back every spring, long after he was gone." Ren looked at the flowers, red and orange in the fading light. His father's hands had planted them. His father's love had tended them. And here they were, still blooming, still offering their beauty to anyone who cared to notice. "Thank you," Ren said quietly. He was not sure if he was thanking his mother, or his father, or the flowers themselves, or something larger that included all of them. His mother touched his shoulder gently. "Come inside," she said. "Dinner is almost ready." They walked into the house together, leaving the flowers to bloom in the darkness, leaving the mountains to stand in their ancient silence, leaving the source to continue its endless unfolding without any need for witnesses. The ninth stage teaches us that there is nowhere to arrive because we have never left. The source we sought through all our searching and struggling was here from the very beginning. It was here before we started the path, and it is here now that the path has dissolved. It was never hidden. We were simply looking in the wrong direction, searching in distant mountains for what was growing in our own garden. The Buddha taught that nirvana is not somewhere else. It is not a place we go after we die, not a state we achieve after years of practice, not a reward waiting for us at the end of a long and difficult journey. Nirvana is here and now, in the midst of ordinary life, available to anyone who has eyes to see it. The difference between samsara, the world of suffering, and nirvana, the world of peace, is not a difference of place or time. It is a difference of seeing. When we see clearly, this very world is nirvana. When we see through the lens of craving and aversion, this very world is samsara. Nothing changes except our perception. The flowers are the same flowers. The river is the same river. Only the eyes that see them have been transformed. This is a difficult teaching, and it can be easily misunderstood. It does not mean that suffering is not real, or that we should not try to help those who are in pain. It means that the source of peace is not somewhere else, waiting to be found. It is here, in this breath, in this step, in this ordinary moment of being alive. The Zen master Layman Pang, after years of practice, said that his supernatural power and marvelous activity was simply drawing water and carrying firewood. This was not false modesty. It was the deepest truth. When we are awake, the most ordinary activities are miraculous. Drawing water, we draw the whole universe. Carrying firewood, we carry the source itself. In this stage, we stop looking for special experiences. We stop waiting for enlightenment to arrive. We realize that it has already arrived, that it was never absent, that it is showing itself right now in the sound of traffic outside the window, in the feel of clothes against our skin, in the taste of morning tea. There is nothing that is not the source. There is nowhere we can go that is outside the source. We have finally come home, not to a place, but to a way of seeing. The river flows. The flowers bloom. The mountains stand silent against the sky. This is the source, pouring itself out, hiding in plain sight, offering itself to anyone who is willing to receive it. Rest here for a moment. Look around you at whatever is present. The walls of your room, the light through the window, the sounds in the distance. All of it is the source. All of it is sacred. All of it is home. Pause for a moment before we take the final step together. The 10th and final stage of awakening is called return to society. In the traditional picture, we see a figure that might surprise us after all we have been through. It is not a serene monk in robes, not a sage sitting in perfect meditation. It is an ordinary person, perhaps a bit ragged, barefoot and simple, walking into a village with a warm smile. In some versions of the picture, this figure carries a sack over one shoulder, ready to offer gifts to whoever they meet. They are entering the marketplace, mingling with the people of the world. This is how the path of awakening ends. Not in retreat from the world, but in full engagement with it. Not in transcendence above ordinary life, but in complete immersion within it. The seeker who began the journey lost and confused has become someone utterly simple, utterly present, utterly available to whatever life brings. The Buddha himself modeled this return. After his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, he did not remain in solitary bliss. He got up, walked back into the world, and spent the remaining 45 years of his life teaching, helping, and being with people from all walks of life. Kings and beggars, scholars and farmers, saints and sinners. He met them all with the same open presence. He did not hold himself above anyone. He did not claim special status. He simply offered what he had found to anyone who was ready to receive it. This is the final fruit of awakening. A life lived in service, not from obligation or duty, but from the natural overflow of compassion that arises when the self has become transparent. When we no longer defend and protect a separate self, we naturally turn toward others. Their suffering becomes our concern. Their joy becomes our joy. The boundaries that once divided us from the world have dissolved, and what remains is love, simple and unconditional, flowing wherever it is needed. Zen tradition speaks of this stage through the image of Hote, the laughing Buddha. Hote was not a monk in a monastery. He was a wanderer, a bit eccentric, who roamed from village to village with his sack of gifts, playing with children, laughing with shopkeepers, bringing joy wherever he went. He did not preach or teach in any formal way. His very presence was the teaching. His laughter was the Dharma. People felt lighter just being around him, without knowing why. This is what it means to return to society. We do not return as teachers or gurus, claiming authority and gathering followers. We return as ordinary people, indistinguishable from anyone else, yet somehow carrying a quality of presence that touches those around us. The Zen master's robe becomes work clothes. The meditation hall becomes the kitchen, the marketplace, the street corner. Every encounter becomes an opportunity to offer the gift of attention, of kindness, of being fully present. The Buddha said that an awakened person moves through the world like a lotus flower, which grows in muddy water but remains unstained. This does not mean avoiding the mud. It means being fully in the mud, fully engaged with the messiness and difficulty of human life, yet not being caught by it. We can be with suffering without being overwhelmed. We can face conflict without losing our peace. We can encounter hatred and respond with compassion, not because we are trying to be spiritual, but because compassion has become our natural response. There is a teaching in Zen about the difference between a person on the path and a person who has completed it. The person on the path is still working on themselves, still trying to improve, still efforting towards some goal. The person who has completed the path has nothing left to work on. They are simply themselves, fully and completely, without pretense or agenda. They have become, as the Buddha said, like little children. This comparison to children appears in many wisdom traditions. Children are simple. They do not calculate or strategize. They respond to each moment freshly, without the burden of past and future. They laugh easily and cry easily and move on easily. They are not trying to be anything other than what they are. This simplicity, this naturalness, this freedom from self-consciousness is what we return to in the 10th stage. Not a childishness that avoids responsibility, but a childlikeness that meets life with wonder and openness. Years passed. Ren's mother grew older, and eventually, peacefully, she died. He buried her beside his father in the small cemetery at the edge of the village where generations of his family rested. He stood by the grave and felt the sorrow move through him like weather, like clouds passing across the sky. He did not resist it. He did not cling to it. He simply let it be what it was, and in time, it softened into something gentler, something that felt more like gratitude than grief. He continued to work the farm, though he needed less now that he was alone. He grew vegetables and shared them with neighbors. He kept the irrigation channels clear so that water flowed to everyone's fields. He mended fences, not just his own, but anyone's that needed mending. He became known in the village as someone you could count on, someone who would show up when help was needed, someone who seemed to have all the time in the world. Children loved him. They would find him in the fields or by the river and ask him to play, and he always said yes. He would make them toys from sticks and leaves, tell them stories he half remembered and half invented, chase them through the lanes until everyone collapsed laughing. Their parents watched with a mixture of amusement and something like wonder. There was something about Ren that they could not quite name. A lightness, a presence, a way of being fully there that made everyone around him feel more fully there too. Sometimes travelers would pass through the village, and some of them would seek Ren out. Word had spread, somehow, that there was a man here who had studied at a mountain temple, who had found something worth finding. They would ask him questions about enlightenment, about the meaning of life, about how to find peace. Ren would listen to their questions carefully. Then, more often than not, he would offer them tea. Or he would ask about their journey, where they had come from, what they had seen along the way. Or he would simply sit with them in silence, watching the clouds drift across the sky. But what is the secret? They would sometimes press. What did you learn in the mountains? Ren would smile at this. I learned that there is no secret, he would say. I learned that everything you are looking for is already here. I learned that the most ordinary things are the most sacred, and that the meaning of life is to live it. This answer usually disappointed them. They wanted something more dramatic, more mysterious. They wanted techniques and practices and stages of attainment. They wanted to know that they were special, that their seeking made them different from ordinary people. They wanted the secret handshake that would admit them into the club of the enlightened. But some of them heard something in Ren's simple words, something that resonated deeper than philosophy, deeper than words themselves. They would look at him, at the way he sat so easily, at the peace in his eyes, at the way he seemed to have nowhere else to be and nothing else to do, and something would shift in them. Not a big shift, just a small opening, a crack in the shell of their seeking. And that was enough. That was the seed. That was the gift Ren had to offer, the same gift Master Soen had offered him, the same gift the old woman by the stream had offered him, the same gift that has been passed down through countless generations of ordinary people who found the extraordinary hiding in the ordinary. One evening, a young man came to see him. The young man reminded Ren of himself, long ago. The same restlessness in his eyes, the same hunger for something he could not name. I want to find what you found, the young man said. Will you teach me? Ren looked at him for a long moment. He remembered Master Soen, the day he had arrived at the temple gate, lost and grieving. He remembered the old woman by the stream who had pointed him toward the mountains. He remembered all the teachers and all the teachings, all the struggles and all the surrenders. "I cannot teach you anything," Ren said finally, "but I can sit with you. I can walk with you. I can point at the moon, though you will have to see it for yourself." The young man nodded eagerly. "Where do I start?" Ren smiled and picked up a broom that was leaning against the wall. "The courtyard needs sweeping," he said. "Start there." The 10th stage has no ending because it is not a stage at all. It is simply life, lived fully, offered freely. The one who returns to society does not think of themselves as awakened or enlightened. Those words have lost their meaning. There is just this moment, this person in front of them, this task at hand. There is just the endless opportunity to be kind, to be present, to be of service. The Buddha was once asked to summarize his teaching in a single phrase. He said, "I teach suffering and the end of suffering." But by the 10th stage, even this teaching has been absorbed and released. There is no more teaching, no more learning, no more path. There is just a person walking through the world with empty hands and an open heart, meeting each moment as it comes. Zen Master Yunmen said, "Every day is a good day." This is the spirit of the 10th stage. Not because every day is pleasant or easy, but because every day is an opportunity to wake up, to give, to love, even difficult days, even days of loss and pain. Every day is a good day because every day is life offering itself to us, and we are finally simple enough to receive it. The journey that began with confusion and longing ends with simplicity and peace. The seeker who searched so desperately for the ox discovers that they have become the ox, or rather, that they were always the ox, that there was never any separation. And now, having nothing left to seek, they are free to give, free to serve, free to walk into the marketplace with a smile and a sack of gifts, bringing joy to everyone they meet. This is the completion of the path. Not an ending, but a beginning. Not an achievement, but a release. The 10 stages of awakening lead us back to where we started, to ordinary life, to this moment, to here and now. And we discover that here and now is the most extraordinary place in the universe. It always was. We just needed to take the long journey to find out. The path is complete, and the path continues. Every step you take is the path. Every breath you breathe is the teaching. Every person you meet is the Buddha, waiting to be recognized. Go gently. Go simply. Go with an open heart. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here at Sleepy Monk.